Chapter 2052. Would Forefather Heaven and Earth admit it? Of course not. As long as Forefather Heaven and Earth wasn't stupid, he would never admit it. This was because he knew very well that once he admitted to it, he would definitely die. Although he was invincible among those at the same level, he was nothing compared to the Universe Realm Master. Sir, don't you believe me? Jin Sheng didn't believe him. Of the 6 Universe Territory ancestors, Forefather Heaven and Earth was fine. No one would believe that. Moreover, since Longao had the Universe Realm Master's corpse and Universe Bag, Forefather Heaven and Earth had a motive. However, without concrete evidence, Jin Sheng would definitely not make a move casually. Heaven and Earth, you know how serious this is. 5 Universe Territory ancestors had died and 4 of them were from the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Even the Heaven-Devouring Empire didn't want to see such a loss. Universe Territory ancestors and Universe Realm Masters were the treasures of the Empire. Losing one of them was heartbreaking, let alone losing 4 of them and situ he. Jin Sheng was furious. He also understood that although Longao wasn't simple, it wasn't realistic for him to kill 5 territory ancestors of the Starry Sky, even if he did it one by one. The biggest suspect was Forefather Heaven and Earth. However, Forefather Heaven and Earth wouldn't admit it. What should he do? Admitting it meant death. Heaven and Earth, I'll ask you one last time. Did you do it? Under the suppression of the star boundary, Forefather Heaven and Earth shook his head. Before he could speak, a laughter came. Forefather Heaven and Earth, since you dared to do it, why don't you dare to admit it? Longao's figure suddenly appeared. Looking at Longao, Ancestor Chen was like seeing a worrisome person. Due to his carelessness, he was almost killed by Longao. Today, if he was careless, he would be killed by Jin Sheng. Longao, you dare to come? Jin Sheng, I'm not here to fight with you. I just want to tell you that Forefather Heaven and Earth and I cooperated well and killed 5 people. Longao laughed and said, Old Ancestor Chen Kuan, I can make a blood oath now. As long as you can kill Jin Sheng, I can return the corpse of the Chen Kuan Realm Lord and the Chen Kuan bag to you. How about it? Longao, I'll kill you. How could Ancestor Heaven and Earth agree? Not to mention whether Longao was real or fake, just based on Jin Sheng's strength alone, not to mention one of him, even 100 of him would not be Jin Sheng's match. To deal with Jin Sheng, unless he was tired of living. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth had a guilty conscience. Otherwise, he would not have struck out. Stop, my lord. Waving his hand, he stopped Patriarch Heaven and Earth. Jin Sheng was almost certain that the real culprit who killed the 5 Black Brothers was definitely Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Under normal circumstances, Ancestor Heaven and Earth would never do such a thing. However, for the sake of the ancestors' bones and Chen Kuan pouch, things were different. Longao, even if Chen Kuan killed 5 people, what does that have to do with you? Jin Sheng did not strike out immediately because Ancestor Heaven and Earth was on his side. He could not strike in front of Longao. First, he would deal with Longao, then deal with Chen Kuan. Jin Sheng was full of confidence that Chen Kuan could not escape. The surrounding space had been disturbed, so Longao could not enter the spatial artifact. Therefore, Jin Sheng was not in a hurry to strike. Longao, I'd like to ask, where are you from? Middle-level plane. Middle-level plane? Whether it was Ancestor Heaven and Earth, Jin Sheng, or Fang Xia, none of them believed Longao's words. How could a middle-level plane produce such a genius? However, Longao did not lie. He did come from a middle-level plane, but Tianwu plane was special. Which middle-level plane? Jin Sheng seemed to believe Longao because his intuition told him that Longao might not lie. This plane. This plane. If Longao was telling the truth, then it was hard to believe. How could they not find out Longao's identity in a plane? However, Longao did not seem to be lying. Could it be that Longao's plane was sealed? This was the only explanation. Jin Sheng did not continue to ask because he knew that Longao would not say more. Longao, do you think you can escape this time? Longao smiled confidently and did not speak. However, the more confident he was, the more uncertain Jin Sheng was. Strike. Ancestor Chen Kuan took a big step forward and rushed forward. He was sure that Jin Sheng was beginning to suspect him. If he could deal with Longao, he might be able to turn things around. Otherwise, he would definitely die this time. Just when Ancestor Chen Kuan was about to deal with Longao, the situation suddenly changed. Ancestor Chen Kuan turned around and rushed towards another direction. In the blink of an eye, Ancestor Heaven and Earth disappeared without a trace. Ancestor Heaven and Earth ran away. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth was not a fool. Even Jin Sheng was not sure that he could kill Longao, so he had no confidence at all. In that case, what should he do if he did not run away? Should he wait for Jin Sheng to kill him? Jin Sheng was dumbfounded and furious. Ancestor Heaven and Earth's escape this time was due to his guilty conscience. However, Jin Sheng did not chase after him. Now, he had to deal with Longao first. Just as Jin Sheng was about to strike, two Longaos appeared, one on the left and one on the right. Both of them used teleportation to escape quickly. Which one should he choose? Although Jin Sheng knew that one was real and the other was fake, he could not determine which one was Longao's real body and which one was Longao's doppelganger. If he made the wrong choice, he would let Longao escape again. Forget it. The situation was urgent. Jin Sheng did not care about anything else and directly went towards Longao on the left. However, he had to admit that Longao's luck was really good. Perhaps Jin Sheng's luck was too bad. The one he chose to go to the left was not Longao's original body, but his reincarnation clone. When Jin Sheng realized it, it was too late. Longao and his doppelganger had disappeared at the same time. Jin Sheng wanted to die when he saw them disappear right under his nose. As the Starry Sky Sector Master, he was given an important task by the Empire to come here. But what was the result? Among the 6 Starry Sky Territory ancestors, 5 of them were dead, and 1 of them had run away. Fang Xia was the only one left. Now, he was the only one left. If this matter was spread out, no, it was already spread out, he would be utterly disgraced. Jin Sheng's face was very gloomy, it was as ugly as it could be, because until now, it seemed that Longao was leading him by the nose. He was very passive, because he couldn't even determine Longao's whereabouts. Longao could come whenever he wanted to, and leave whenever he wanted to. Chapter 2053. The 5 Universe Territory ancestors were really killed by Ancestor Chen Kuan. After the news was confirmed, it caused a huge uproar. When his own people killed his own people, the one who benefited was always Longao. Not only that, it was said that Ancestor Chen Kuan had escaped the falling cloud plane to avoid being killed. The most unbelievable thing was that not only did Longao appear in the falling cloud plane, he even faced Jin Sheng face to face and escaped unscathed. Many people started to admire Longao. Not everyone was able to do this. The Heaven-Devouring Empire also received the news, but they didn't blame Jin Sheng. No matter what, Jin Sheng's strength and status were there. The Heaven-Devouring Empire sent another Universe Territory ancestor to the falling cloud plane. Many people couldn't understand. Even Realm Lord Jin Sheng couldn't deal with Longao. What could a Universe Territory ancestor do? When the identity of the Universe Territory ancestor was revealed, everyone chose to keep quiet. Wan Tong was a Universe Territory ancestor array master. With his powerful array, he could even kill a Universe Realm Lord. In the tens of thousands of domains in the Heaven-Devouring Empire, Wan Tong's reputation was even higher than Jin Sheng's. No one expected that Wan Tong would personally come to deal with Longao. Would Longao be able to escape unscathed this time? Until that moment, no one knew that Longao was actually an array master of the Starry Sky. Moreover, he was an array master of the Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Array. But so what if they knew? Everyone knew the difference between a Starry Sky Territory Ancestral Array Master and a Starry Sky Territory Master. Brother Wan Tong, why did you come personally? When Jin Sheng saw Wan Tong at first glance, he was also surprised. However, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart and was extremely unhappy. The Heaven-Devouring Empire did this to tell him and everyone else that he was useless. He couldn't even deal with Longao. That was why they sent Wn Tong to help. Wan Tong smiled. Wn Tong smiled and said, "Brother Jin, please don't misunderstand. The Empire sent me here to help you. According to your description, this person isn't simple." The unhappiness in his heart quickly disappeared without a trace. Who asked him to be unable to deal with Longao? If he continued to delay, the Empire's reputation would be ruined. Brother Wontong, with your help, even if Longao has 3 heads and 6 arms, he will definitely die this time. Wan Tong smiled, tacitly agreeing. It was easy to imagine how powerful the Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Array Masters were. It was still the same sentence. It was more than enough to deal with a Starry Sky Region Lord, let alone a Starry Sky Region Lord. Jin Sheng treated the other territory ancestors as if he was superior to them. However, he treated Wn Tong as an equal. Jin Sheng was very clear in his heart that even with his strength, he was unable to contend against Wn Tong. Just the array formation alone, he believed that Wn Tong could kill him. This was Wan Tong's strength. This was the power of the Starry Sky Domain's ancestral array masters. Brother Wontong, the key now is that Longao is in the dark while we are in the light. We can't lock onto Longao's position at all. Moreover, this person can enter the spatial artifact at any time. This was what Jin Sheng was most speechless about. Of course, he wasn't afraid of the other's strength. However, he was helpless against Longao's elusive appearance, which made him unable to lock onto the other's position. With only power, not to mention Longao, he wouldn't even put the Starry Sky Region Lord in his eyes. Wan Tong understood the situation. He thought for a while and then said, "It's easy to deal with the spatial artifact. As long as we can interfere with the space fluctuation, we can prevent Longao from disappearing. As for what you said, we can't lock onto the other's position. It's really troublesome. If it wasn't troublesome, Wn Tong wouldn't have come here. Brother Jin, according to you, Longao will come to provoke us every once in a while?" He nodded reluctantly. It was also Jin Sheng's biggest shame. A small Starry Sky Region Lord had provoked him again and again, and he couldn't kill him. Wn Tong wanted to laugh because he hadn't seen Jin Sheng suffer for many years. In the end, Wn Tong couldn't help but laugh out loud. It didn't matter if he laughed, but it was simply a slap to the face. However, the relationship between the two wasn't bad. Jin Sheng also knew that the other party didn't do it on purpose. After all, the back and forth between him and Longao was a joke. He didn't know how he would be laughed at outside. The dignified Starry Sky Region Lord was completely humiliated. "Brother Wn Tong, you have to deal with Longao for me. Otherwise, I'll be disgraced." Wn Tong nodded and said, "We can't kill him yet. His Majesty has ordered us to capture him alive. Brother Wn Tong, it's not bad if we can bring the corpse back. If we want to capture him alive, I'm afraid there will be more problems." Jin Sheng was completely afraid. Although Longao's strength wasn't great, he had all kinds of secret techniques. If an accident happened, how would he explain it to the Empire? How could Wn Tong not understand Jin Sheng's meaning? Since it's His Majesty's order, we'll just do as he says. Brother Jin, this kid isn't simple. It seems like His Majesty wants to know his secret and his background. Jin Sheng nodded in agreement. Jin Sheng had already guessed that although Longao came from a mid-level plane, his identity was definitely not simple. Because in the vast starry sky, some planes were not only mysterious but also very powerful. For example, the Samsara plane. At that time, the Samsara clan had shaken the entire vast starry sky. According to Longao's situation, there must be a powerful plane behind him. If they could thread the needle and find this plane, it would be a good thing for the heaven-devouring empire. As for Longao, there was no doubt that he would die. Not to mention other things, just the fact that Longao had turned the third prince into a puppet was enough to kill him. Wn Tong and Jin Sheng had been discussing how to deal with Longao. As for Longao, for some reason, he didn't receive any news of Wn Tong's arrival. It turned out that Yi Ji Mai was severely injured because of him. It was no secret that Longao and Ji of Plum Blossom were friends. Everyone knew that Ji of Plum Blossom had accompanied Longao to fight against Chenkuan sect and the Heaven-Devouring Empire. How could the Heaven-Devouring Empire let Ji of Plum Blossom off? It was impossible for Longao to stay by Ji Zuimai's side all the time. Hence, Ji Zuimai was besieged. Fortunately, Ji Zuimai used his secret technique in the end. Otherwise, he would have died. Longao blamed himself and said, "Yi Zhimai, it's my fault. If we're friends, don't talk nonsense." With Longao's help, Yi Zhimai's wounds gradually stabilized. After killing the 5 territory ancestors of the Starry Sky, except for Situ his primordial spirit, he got the primordial spirits of the other 4. It was something that Heaven and Earth Forefather had never thought of. Chapter 2054. Longao had already devoured 3 primordial spirits. As for the remaining primordial spirit, he had refined it into a Starry Sky godhead and handed it to Abyssal Plum. Longao was depressed because even though he had devoured 3 Starry Sky territory ancestor primordial spirits, his strength had only increased by half. He still had a long way to go before he could break through to the Starry Sky territory emperor realm. Brother Long, this Starry Sky territory ancestor godhead is too precious. I can't take it. Abyssal Plum was dumbfounded. He knew what a Starry Sky territory ancestor godhead meant. He would be lying if he said he didn't want it. However, a Starry Sky territory ancestor godhead was too precious. We're friends. Don't talk nonsense. He was touched. It was worth it to have such a friend, even if he had to die. Abyssal Plum didn't say anything else and directly devoured the godhead. However, the Starry Sky territory ancestor godhead was too powerful. Even if he tried to refine it, he wouldn't be able to do so in a few years. However, Abyssal Plum had decided that after he refined the Starry Sky territory ancestor godhead and broke through to the Starry Sky territory ancestor realm, he would follow Longao. However, Abyssal Plum didn't say anything because actions were more important than words. After Abyssal Plum's injuries were stabilized, Longao was ready to take revenge. He had to take revenge for his friend. According to Abyssal Plum, there were more than 10 people who had besieged him. The strongest among them was the Starry Sky Territory Lord. If there had been a Starry Sky Territory Emperor or Starry Sky Territory Emperor, he wouldn't have been able to return. Starry Sky Territory Lord. Soon, Abyssal Plum and Longao found the people who had besieged them. They didn't even know who they were. They bullied the weak and feared the strong. Hey, Abyssal Plum, I really admire your courage. You dare to show up in front of me. Are you unhappy that I didn't kill you last time? The dozen or so people spoke with arrogance. Among the dozen or so people, except for the Starry Sky Domain Lord in the front, the rest were either grade 9 or grade 8 Starry Sky cultivators. There wasn't even a single grade 7 Starry Sky cultivator. They were more than enough to deal with a grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator like Abyssal Plum. We're not sure who will die. Everyone laughed and laughed when they heard Jizui's words. Abyssal Plum. As long as you tell us where Longao is, we will let's go. Brother Long. Spray of Plum Blossom almost burst out laughing. It turned out that many people in the realm knew about Longao, but those who had actually seen Longao were few and far between. Even if Longao stood in front of them, they wouldn't be able to recognize him. It had to be said that this was a joke. Zebra Plum, I'll give you one last chance. You don't have to. Longao, who had been silent all this while, stepped forward. He was half a step ahead of Yi Zhimai. Who are you? Sensing that the young man next to Yi Zhimai was not an expert and seemed to be just a grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator, everyone laughed crazily. They had thought that Yi Zhi Plum had found an expert, but it turned out that it was just a grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator. What a joke! What a joke! In everyone's eyes, Sprig of Plum Blossom was a tragedy. Zebra Plum, you're making me laugh. Big brother, don't waste your breath on him. Just kill him. I know how to search his soul. Even if he dies, we can still find traces of Longao. They were overestimating themselves. Longao couldn't figure out what was wrong with these people's brains. He wasn't even afraid of the heaven-devouring empire and the starry sky domain lord. Why would he be afraid of a starry sky domain lord and a few grade 9 starry sky cultivators? Longao shook his head helplessly and said with a smile, "Zebra Plum, leave them to me. How do you want them to die?" Contempt. It was a blatant disdain. When they realized that Mo Wuji was ignoring them, they were furious and roared, "Kid, who do you think you are? How dare you be so arrogant here? This daddy will kill you today." This grade 9 starry sky cultivator seemed to be very eager to show off. With a stride forward, he shot out from the left side. He had not yet arrived, but his killing move had already arrived. This person obviously wanted to kill Longao. In that case, would Longao still be polite? He sneered. The strength of the other party was nothing in Longao's eyes. He didn't even move. He raised his right hand and gently slashed in the direction of the other party. A horrifying scene happened. Before this so-called grade 9 starry sky cultivator could react, he was strangled and swallowed by the newly appeared starry sky crack. It would be strange if this person could resist Mo Wuji's shattering starry sky. Shattering starry sky, big brother, it's shattering starry sky. Everyone knew what shattering starry sky meant. Not to mention a grade 9 starry sky cultivator, even a starry sky domain lord wouldn't dare to face shattering starry sky head-on. Otherwise, once swallowed by the shattering starry sky, only death would await them. Who was this person? How could he use shattering starry sky? To kill a grade 9 starry sky cultivator in one move, there was no doubt that this person wasn't a grade 9 starry sky cultivator on the surface. Could it be that this person was hiding his strength? This was the only explanation. As if thinking of something, someone exclaimed, "You are Longao." Yes, it was Longao. This was because the fact that Longao could shatter the starry sky was no longer a secret. Seeing that the other party didn't deny it, and thinking of the relationship between Jimai and Longao, everyone understood who this person was. Before they saw Longao, everyone was clamoring to find Longao every day. Now that they finally saw him, everyone was like a mouse that saw a cat. No one felt excited. Instead, they were all incomparably shocked. This was because no one thought that Spray of Plum Blossom would really invite Longao. Who was Longao? Didn't you just say that you were looking for me? I'm standing right here. May I ask why you are looking for me? Looking at the faint smile on Longao's face, everyone was frightened to the extreme. As the saying went, a man's reputation was like the shadow of a tree. They had heard about Longao's arrogance. He had killed the third prince, Shunfeng, and used Ancestor Heaven and Earth to kill the 5 starry sky territory ancestors. Even Bu Tian, who had just arrived, had disappeared for no reason. All of these told everyone that Longao had the right to be arrogant. He didn't even put the starry sky sector master in his eyes. Why would he put them in his eyes? Among them, the strongest was only a grade 9 starry sky cultivator. How could they resist Longao? Would they die for sure? Thinking of this, the arrogant people's faces turned ugly. The starry sky sector master said helplessly, "Senior Long, it's all our fault. We shouldn't have hurt your friends, and we shouldn't have disturbed you for no reason. It's all our fault. You are a magnanimous person. You don't need to be angry with us. Otherwise, it won't be good for you if you get angry and hurt your body. Thank you very much." Author's note: today, 10 chapters will erupt. Brothers, if you have a vote, please vote for Longao. Little 9 thanks. Chapter 2055. Wrong. No one was willing to die. They had just witnessed Longao's strength with their own eyes. The legends might be fake, but what they saw with their own eyes was also fake. In the face of great strength and death, everyone chose to compromise. Spray of Plum smiled. Longao also smiled. Longao smiled and said, "Spray of Plum, what do you think? Kill." Spray of Plum didn't show any mercy because this was the reality of the vast starry sky. "If you don't kill me, I will kill you." If it wasn't for Longao's personal arrival, would they have left him alive? If he hadn't run away in time, he would have been killed by them. Spray of Plum wouldn't give his enemies any chance. Only by eliminating the root of the problem would he not cause any trouble for himself. Longao and Spray of Plum had the same idea. Eliminate the root of the problem to prevent future trouble. Hearing Spray of Plum's words, everyone's expression changed and they hurriedly said, "Lord Longao, please spare us. We are willing to do anything. Why don't we submit to you? In the future, if you ask us to go east, we will never dare to go west." Just a moment ago, he was still Senior Long. Now, he was Lord Longao. Everyone was scared out of their wits and panicked. Based on the strength Longao had just shown, no one present was a match for Longao. Even the Cosmic Domain Lord couldn't defeat Longao. As long as they fought, they would die without a doubt. In the face of death, no one wasn't afraid. Everyone looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. There was no need to mention Longao's strength. Everyone retreated step by step. If Longao really attacked, they would run as fast as they could. Now, everyone was regretting to the extreme. Why did they look for Longao? Why did they look for Spray of Plum? They even rewarded Spray of Plum. Regret. But was there any use in regretting now? Longao smiled and raised his right hand. Seeing this situation, everyone was thoroughly shocked. Longao had just made a light stroke, and a grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator had ended up swallowed by the Starry Sky crack. Would Longao give them a chance? With a series of slashes, several spatial rifts swallowed everyone. If it were the Starry Sky Territory King, Starry Sky Territory Emperor, or Starry Sky Territory Ancestor, Longao wouldn't be able to use the space crack so accurately. But now, among the dozens of people, the strongest was the Starry Sky Domain Lord. Longao could almost kill people of the same level as him in an instant, let alone cultivators below the Starry Sky Domain Lord level. Screams rang out one after another. In just a few seconds, dozens of people had been killed. This was Longao's strength. Looking at how strong Longao was, even Yi Ji-mai couldn't help but gulp. No wonder Brother Long dared to go against Chenkuan sect, destroy the Chenkuan world, and even go against the heaven-devouring empire. But one had to know. Currently, Brother Long is just a Starry Sky Domain Lord. Previously, he was just a grade 8 Starry Sky cultivator. It was hard to imagine how strong Brother Long would be if he could break through to the Emperor Realm, or even the Territory Ancestor Realm. Brother Long, many thanks. Yi Ji-mai, you have already devoured the Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead. Quickly find a secluded place to cultivate. Try to break through to the Universal Territory Ancestor Realm as soon as possible. Okay. Yi Ji-mai understood Longao's meaning. With his current strength, it was almost impossible for him to establish himself in the vast universe, let alone help Longao. Plum Blossom found a low-level plane and began to cultivate quietly. In the vast universe, there were countless worlds. Low-level worlds, mid-level worlds, and high-level worlds. Yi Ji-mai didn't choose a mid-level world or a high-level world. Instead, he chose a low-level world. The reason was simple. Under normal circumstances, Starry Sky cultivators would not go to low-level positional planes. With his strength as a grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator, once he entered a low-level positional plane, he would become almost invincible. Moreover, as long as he did not come out, no one would be able to find him. After taking revenge for Yi Ji-mai, Longao prepared to find Ancestor Heaven and Earth. At this moment, Ancestor Heaven and Earth was like a stray dog. Longao knew that even if he didn't go to find Ancestor Heaven and Earth, he believed that Ancestor Heaven and Earth would find him. As long as Ancestor Heaven and Earth was alive, he would always be a problem because he didn't know when Ancestor Heaven and Earth would appear. After the 5 territory ancestors fell, Longao's name spread across the world once again. Although the 5 territory ancestors weren't killed by Longao, they died because of Longao. Think about it. If it weren't for Longao's provocation, the 5 territory ancestors wouldn't have died, and Ancestor Heaven and Earth wouldn't have betrayed them. Now that things had turned out this way, where would Jin Sheng's face go? Where would the heaven-devouring empire's face go? Anyone who wanted to deal with Longao was a joke. At this moment, Longao was just a territory master of the Starry Sky. Before that, He was just a level 8 starry sky cultivator. Under normal circumstances, he could even destroy the Heaven and Earth sect easily, let alone the Heaven and Earth Empire. However, the result? Whether it was the Territory Master, Territory Emperor, Territory Ancestor, or even the Territory Master of the Starry Sky, no one could kill Longao. It was hard to believe. Whether it was WN Tong or Jin Sheng, they were waiting for Longao to come and provoke them. According to Jin Sheng's guess, Longao couldn't stand it anymore and came to provoke them. However, with all kinds of secret techniques, Longao was able to escape every time. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. Longao still hadn't shown up. Jin Sheng was bewildered. Did Longao give up? Wan Tong didn't seem to believe it. He asked gloomily, "Brother Jin, are you sure that Longao won't come?" How would he know? Jin Sheng was also helpless. He said helplessly, "Brother Wan Tong, I know what you mean. However, I'm not sure either. According to my understanding of him, he would come to provoke us every once in a while. Last time, he killed 5 people to sow discord. Even Ancestor Chen Kuan fled. As for why he didn't show up this time, I have no idea." Jin Sheng really didn't know. As for Wan Tong, he didn't have any doubts. After all, the heaven-devouring empire was there and their relationship was there. Jin Sheng didn't need to lie to him. Since that was the case, the two of them couldn't figure out why Longao didn't show up. What had happened? No matter how powerful Wan Tong's formation was, as long as Longao didn't show up, it was useless. Therefore, Wan Tong and Jin Sheng were anxious. If this continued, they didn't know how to explain it to the Heaven and Earth Empire. Chapter 2056. Longao was still nowhere to be seen. Longao wasn't in a hurry, but Wan Tong and Jin Sheng were. Although the Empire didn't set a time limit, their strength was obvious. One was a Starry Sky Sector Lord while the other was a Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Array Master. If they couldn't deal with Longao, how could they save their face? But now, the result was that Longao refused to appear. Ever since Ancestor Heaven and Earth left Falling Cloud Plain, he had been looking for Longao. In the eyes of Ancestor Heaven and Earth, it was entirely Longao's fault that he was reduced to such a state. He had to take revenge. Ancestor Heaven and Earth was like a stray dog. He didn't dare to show up or reveal his whereabouts. He killed 5 Starry Sky Territory Ancestors. Once Jin Sheng caught him, he knew what would happen. He regretted it to the extreme. Ancestor Heaven and Earth didn't know what had happened to him. He fell into Longao's trap for no reason. Ancestor Heaven and Earth was secretly looking for Longao while Jin Sheng was openly looking for Longao. What was the result? A message suddenly appeared on the interface. Ancestor Heaven and Earth was recruiting people everywhere to deal with Jin Sheng. Everyone laughed when they heard the news. Did Ancestor Heaven and Earth really think that a Starry Sky Territory Lord was a cabbage in the market? A Starry Sky Territory Lord was powerful enough to dominate a plane. As for the plane Longao was in, no one knew who was in charge. No one believed it. After that, Forefather Heaven and Earth had decided to form an alliance with Longao. No one didn't believe it because Longao had Forefather Heaven and Earth's help to kill the 5 territory ancestors of the Starry Sky. If there was no accident, the two should have formed an alliance. However, what everyone couldn't figure out was that the two of them were clearly sworn enemies, so why would they walk together out of the blue? Longao not only killed Fang Cheng, the master of Heaven and Earth sect, but also destroyed Heaven and Earth plane. If not for the appearance of Longao, the current Chenkuan sect would have taken advantage of the marriage between Fang Xia and the third prince to surpass Blackwind Ridge. The culprit behind all of this was Longao. In that case, could it be that the male ancestor of Heaven and Earth had entered the water? Yet, he chose to form an alliance with his worries to deal with Jin Sheng. With the strength of the heaven-devouring empire, did old ancestor Chen Kuan really think that he could shake the empire? What a joke. This was simply a huge joke. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth and Longao found each other at the same time. It was not known whether it was by luck or on purpose. Anyway, when enemies met, Their eyes burned with hatred. The Dark Abyss Plane. Forefather Black Wind of Black Wind Ridge was one of the strongest existences in this world. He was at the peak of territory ancestor realm in the starry sky, an existence infinitely close to the territory master of starry sky. How could Patriarch Black Wind not know that the two of them had appeared at the same time? In the 9 heavens, at the peak of the clouds. The three of them formed a triangle as they looked at each other. Not only did Longao have a grudge against Ancestor of Heaven and Earth, but Ancestor Black Wind also had a grudge against Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. In the past, the Dark Abyss Plane and Chenkuan Plane had been fighting both openly and secretly. In order to deal with the Dark Abyss Plane, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth had sent Fang Xia to find the third prince. However, things did not go as planned. Unexpectedly, Longao came out of nowhere and ruined Chenkuan sect's plan. If it were not for the heaven-devouring empire, Ancestor Black Wind would have taken action. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth snorted. "Gentlemen, I don't want to interfere in the grudge between the two of you. However, please don't start a war in my plane." An eviction order. Of course, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth was willing to leave. After all, he did not want to provoke Ancestor Black Wind. Once Ancestor Black Wind attacked him, there was no way he could leave. However, would Longao be willing to leave? Seeing Longao not moving, Ancestor Black Wind's face darkened. He said coldly, "Longao, aren't you a little too arrogant? This is my territory after all." Longao was famous for his arrogance. Of course, Ancestor Black Wind was very clear about it. He was worried that Longao would not be willing to leave. It was not worth it to provoke such a big trouble for no reason. Ancestor Black Wind knew how strong Chenkuan sect was. However, what about now? Other than Chenkuan and Fang Xia, the entire sect was destroyed or had left. Even the entire Chenkuan plane was destroyed. Just thinking about it sent shivers down his spine. Longao was simply crazy to the extreme. He even dared to do such a thing. In any case, although the vast starry sky did not have a clear rule, as a part of the vast starry sky, everyone knew very well that no matter who it was, even the starry sky lord, they could not casually destroy a plane. In the past, there was a universe realm lord who destroyed a plane. Several empires joined forces to hunt him down. In the end, they killed him. Since then, no one dared to do such a thing. Longao had broken the precedent. He was provoking the heaven-devouring empire and everyone in the universe. "Longao, do you want to be my enemy? The entire Black Abyss Plane?" Seeing that Ancestor Black Wind was really angry, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth was excited. If the two of them really went to war, he would be able to reap the benefits. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth hoped that the two of them would go to war, but would Longao? Longao was no fool. Of course, he would not cause trouble for himself. He smiled and said, "Ancestor Black Wind, I know your character. You have always wanted to destroy Chenkuan Plane, but you couldn't do it. Now, I have helped you destroy Chenkuan Plane." "Wait, Longao, you are helping yourself, not me. You have to be clear about this." Longao smiled and continued, "Yes, it's my business, but I have also helped you indirectly. There is no enmity between us. If you are willing, we can be friends. Why don't we work together to kill Ancestor of Heaven and Earth? Both of us can be rid of future troubles. What do you think?" F***ck old Ancestor Chen Kuan cursed in his heart. He had never thought that Longao would make such a move. However, he was not worried at all. If it was in the past, old Ancestor Black Wind would definitely agree to it. But now, with the deterrence of the sky-devouring empire, old Ancestor Black Wind wouldn't agree to it. "Longao, why should I agree? You should know why. If you don't agree, I will have to deal with Ancestor of Heaven and Earth alone. However, it's hard to say what will happen between me and Black Abyss Plane." A threat. It was a blatant threat. However, Ancestor Black Wind knew that Longao had the ability to threaten him. After all, Black Abyss Plane was not much stronger than Chenkuan Plane. If Longao really attacked, how could he resist? How could Black Abyss Plane resist? But did he really have to help Longao deal with Ancestor of Heaven and Earth? If Jin Sheng and the Heaven-Devouring Empire knew about this, he and Black Wind Ridge would be in trouble. Chapter 2057. What should he do? Old Master Black Wind was truly worried. He was afraid that Longao would go berserk and destroy the entire Black Abyss world. Speaking of which, it was truly laughable. To think that someone as powerful as Old Master Black Wind would be intimidated by a mere Longao. This was truly unbelievable. Longao, are you playing with fire? Ha ha ha. Longao burst out laughing. He did not care about Old Master Black Wind at all. Right now, Longao was like a broken pot that had been smashed. Since he had already offended the Heaven-Devouring Empire, the Black Abyss world wouldn't make a difference. Old Master Black Wind, do you think that I would care about you? Old Master Black Wind sighed deeply. Ancestor Black Wind helplessly shook his head and said, Chenkuan, I'm sorry, but Longao is right. I don't want the Black Abyss plane to follow the same path as your Chenkuan plane. So, I'm sorry, I can only sacrifice you. He was not surprised at all. Old Master Black Wind had already guessed it. Even if it were anyone else, they would definitely be afraid of Longao's threat, let alone Old Master Black Wind. If not for the destruction of the Chen Kuan world, things would have been different. If Longao could destroy a world, he could definitely do the same to another world. The barefooted were not afraid of those with shoes. Since Longao was alone, he was not afraid of anyone. But thinking about it, it made sense. If Longao was afraid, he would not have offended the Heaven-Devouring Empire. After all, the Heaven-Devouring Empire's strength was way above Black Wind Ridge. Old Master Black Wind, don't think that you'll be fine just because you helped Longao. As long as I can leave this place today, I swear that I'll destroy the entire Black Abyss world. With the threat of a territory ancestor, Old Master Black Wind would definitely not be simple. Chen Kuan, between you and Longao, I'll definitely choose Longao over you. Old Master Black Wind had already made up his mind. He would definitely not let Old Master Black Wind leave this place. Old Ancestor Chen Kuan had betrayed the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Even if he killed Old Ancestor Chen Kuan, the Heaven-Devouring Empire wouldn't say anything. As long as the news of him helping Longao didn't spread, everything would be fine. Longao and Ancestor Black Wind approached step by step, while Ancestor Heaven and Earth retreated step by step. Ancestor Black Wind, are you really going to help Longao? Longao didn't say anything. Black Wind didn't say anything either. If Longao had been alone, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth would not have taken him seriously. But Longao himself was very weak. He only relied on various secret skills and starry sky divine weapons. But now that Longao had the help of Ancestor Black Wind, things had become troublesome. Ancestor Chen Kuan knew very well that he was no match for Ancestor Black Wind alone, not to mention the two of them joining forces. Below the Starry Sky Sector Lord, there were very few people who could match Ancestor Heaven and Earth, but Ancestor Black Wind was one of them. His expression changed again. Ancestor Black Wind, you will definitely regret this. Attack. Ancestor Black Wind had to admit that he was a decisive person. Since he had made up his mind, he would not continue to hesitate. Ancestor Black Wind and Longao, one on the left and one on the right, began to attack Ancestor Heaven and Earth. According to the current situation, if he continued to fight, he would only die. He made a prompt decision. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth turned around and retreated at an extreme speed. I can't let Ancestor of Heaven and Earth escape. Longao was not in a hurry, but Ancestor Black Wind was anxious. Longao was alone anyway. Even if he couldn't kill Ancestor of Heaven and Earth this time, there would be next time, and the time after that. According to his cultivation speed, he believed that one day he could kill Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. But Ancestor Black Wind's situation was completely different. If he couldn't kill Ancestor of Heaven and Earth, once the news spread out, the first person to deal with him would be Jin Sheng. With Jin Sheng's powerful strength, it was simply a matter of minutes for him to destroy the Black Abyss realm. Ancestor Black Wind did not dare to take the risk. There was only one way, and that was to kill Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. The two madly chased after Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. But in order to escape smoothly, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth used blood escape and left the Black Abyss realm in the blink of an eye. Ancestor of Heaven and Earth stopped abruptly. Black Wind, why did you stop chasing? Longao was very clear about what Ancestor Black Wind was thinking. He was just asking the obvious. Ancestor Black Wind said helplessly, Longao, since you already know, why ask? If you and I go out now, this matter will definitely be exposed. You can be fearless of the Heaven-Devouring Empire, but I can't. If the Heaven-Devouring Empire knows about this, do you think the Black Abyss realm can withstand Jin Sheng's attack? Ancestor Black Wind chuckled. Before Longao could reply, he continued, Longao, you're really shameless. You actually want to drag me down with you. Longao was right. It would be difficult for him to deal with Ancestor of Heaven and Earth alone. If he had the help of Ancestor Black Wind and the entire Black Abyss realm, things would be much easier. Why wouldn't Ancestor Black Wind use him as a scapegoat? Right now, Ancestor Black Wind could be said to be suffering in silence. Black Wind, since I've dragged you down with me, I only have one condition. Help me deal with Ancestor of Heaven and Earth, and I'll deal with the Heaven-Devouring Empire alone. How about that? F***CK. Even if he wanted to deal with the Heaven-Devouring Empire, he had to have the strength to do so. Among the tens of thousands of worlds, who would dare to provoke the Heaven-Devouring Empire? Even the other Starry Sky empires wouldn't dare to provoke the Heaven-Devouring Empire. This was the strength of the Heaven-Devouring Empire. However, things had already come to this point. If he chose not to agree, who knew what Longao would do? If Longao really went crazy and attacked the Black Abyss realm, how could he resist? How could the Black Abyss realm resist? Ancestor Black Wind sighed deeply and said, I have no choice but to agree now. Longao, I've helped you this time. I hope you can help me in the future. Longao heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Ancestor Black Wind's words. He was really afraid that Ancestor Black Wind wouldn't agree. But now, it seemed like Ancestor Black Wind was also a cautious person. However, no matter what, with the help of Ancestor Black Wind, he finally had some confidence and confidence. Not to mention dealing with Jin Sheng, he already had a lot of confidence in dealing with Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Ancestor Black Wind, help is mutual. Since you've helped me this time, I'll do my best to help you if anything happens to the Black Abyss plane in the future. At that time, you'll be glad for what you've done today. Even if he didn't want to believe it, what was done was done. Did he have a choice? Longao, please. Regardless of whether he was willing to make friends with Longao or not, under such circumstances, Ancestor Black Wind was still willing to treat Longao as a friend for the time being. As for whether he would be able to get a return in the future, that was unknown. Chapter 2058. After successfully escaping, Ancestor Chen Kuan felt like he had been reborn. His heart was filled with anger. Ancestor Black Wind, I'll let you be arrogant. Ancestor Chen Kuan wouldn't sit and wait for death. He immediately spread the news that Longao and Ancestor Black Wind had joined forces. Would anyone believe it? It didn't matter if others believed it or not. After all, the grudge between Longao and the Heaven-Devouring Empire had nothing to do with them. Now, it was up to Jin Sheng to believe it. But the result was that Jin Sheng didn't believe it at all. Only a fool would believe it. However, Wen Tong and Jin Sheng weren't willing to give up the slightest chance. They immediately got up and left the falling cloud plane for the Abyss plane. The Abyss plane. Lord Wen Tong, Lord Jin Sheng, what are you here for? Asking the obvious. Ancestor Black Wind had already guessed that Wen Tong and Jin Sheng were here because of the news from Ancestor Chen Kuan. Has Longao been here before? Longao? I've never seen him before. Chen Kuan said that you and Longao have joined forces and are going to hunt him down. Is this true? Of course, they hoped it was true. However, their rationality told them that it wasn't true. Black Wind, I'm asking you to help me kill Longao. Are you willing to do so? Forcing. Ancestor Black Wind was depressed. He had just agreed to cooperate with Longao. Now, Jin Sheng was here. How could he not agree? Without any hesitation, Ancestor Black Wind nodded. Between Jin Sheng and Longao, Ancestor Black Wind ultimately chose Longao over Jin Sheng. He had a feeling that Longao wasn't simple. He could only take a gamble. Ancestor Black Wind was thinking that even if he chose Jin Sheng, so what? No one could guarantee that the heaven-devouring empire wouldn't destroy the abyss plane to silence him. As soon as the two left, Longao's figure appeared. Longao, you're in big trouble this time? WN Tong by Jin Sheng's side. Longao didn't know WN Tong. He just heard Forefather Black Wind call him Sir WN Tong. However, he was curious as to why WN Tong could sit on the same level as Jin Sheng even though he was also a territory ancestor. It seemed that WN Tong's identity was not simple. He nodded. Longao, there's something you don't know. Although Master WN Tong is just a territory ancestor of the Starry Sky Territory, he's an ancestral array master of the Starry Sky Territory. He's known as the strongest array master of the sky-devouring empire. Even the Starry Sky Territory Lord doesn't dare to offend him. It turned out to be a Starry Sky Territory ancestor array master. Longao was also a Starry Sky array formation master, therefore, he naturally understood what it meant to be a Starry Sky Domain's ancestral array formation master. No wonder WN Tong's status was so high. Since WN Tong was known as the most powerful Starry Sky array master, Longao knew very well that unless one was a Starry Sky Realm Master array master, no one would be a match for WN Tong. Indeed, it was troublesome. Longao, listen to me. With your talent and potential, I believe you can become the Starry Sky Territory Lord in less than 10,000 years. At that time, you can come back to take revenge. Why do you have to be so quick? If WN Tong and Jin Sheng join hands, you won't stand a chance. Hide. Longao smiled. If he knew how to hide, he wouldn't have fallen into this situation. I'll kill whoever comes. These simple words had expressed Longao's attitude. Forefather Black Wind didn't continue to persuade him because Longao's life was none of his business. Thus, whether Longao stayed or not had nothing to do with him. Longao, what are you going to do now? You help me deal with Forefather Heaven and Earth. I'll deal with WN Tong and Jin Sheng. F***CK. He had seen arrogant people, but he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, since Longao had made up his mind, Forefather Black Wind didn't say anything. Longao left as soon as he said he would. He followed WN Tong and Jin Sheng all the way back to the fallen cloud plain. From beginning to end, the two of them didn't find any trace of Longao. If the two of them knew that the person they were looking for was right behind them, who knew what they would think? Longao didn't immediately deal with the two. If Jin Sheng was alone, he could deal with it. However, with WN Tong, he would be doomed if he wasn't careful. Starry Sky Territory Lord Array Master? Longao smiled. He was now a Starry Sky Territory Lord Array Master. As for the power of his array, he still didn't know. Longao found a place surrounded by mountains. At least, he wouldn't be discovered here. 1 Origin Array, 2 Chi Array, 3 Talents Array, 4 Extremes Array, 5 Elements Array, 6 Lights Array, 7 Stars Array, 8 Trigrams Array, 9 Palaces Array, 10 Extremes Array, 36 Dipper Array, and 72 Earth-Killing Array. Longao didn't stop after he finished arranging these so-called array formations. Because he was facing a Starry Sky Territory Lord Array Master, these array formations were far from enough. 9 Heavens 10 Earths Killing Array, 10,000 Ghosts Devouring Array, Primordial Everlasting Array, Nirvana Void No Life Array, 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Array, Hidden Dragon Divine Annihilation Array, 6 Wheels Ghost Killing Array, Limitless Tornado Illusion Array, 12 Divine Fiends Grand Array, 3 Lives 3 Death Soul Dispersing Array. It took Longao 3 months to complete all the array formations. Each formation was linked to another. In other words, as long as one formation was triggered, all the other formations would be activated. At that time, with the help of the Endless Vitality Gathering Array, all the formations would be in a state of endless circulation. It was time to take action. Until now, Longao didn't know what kind of experts his formation could kill. At least, it was more than enough to kill a Starry Sky Territory King, or even a Starry Sky Territory Emperor. As for the Starry Sky Territory Ancestor and the Starry Sky Territory Master, he didn't know. Especially WN Tong, the Starry Sky Territory Ancestor's Formation Master. Jin Sheng, WN Tong, come out and face your death. Jin Sheng and WN Tong, who were feeling depressed, suddenly heard Longao's words. They looked at each other as they didn't know what was going on. It had been 4 months, and Longao seemed to have disappeared from the world. Now, he suddenly came out to provoke them. It was a little unbelievable. At first, WN Tong didn't believe it. No matter what, Jin Sheng's strength was there. With Longao's strength, he was simply courting death if he dared to provoke them. When the two of them came out and saw Longao in front of them, WN Tong was a little dumbfounded. The other party wasn't afraid of death. Even if he didn't put Jin Sheng in his eyes, did he not put him in his eyes? Anger. Endless anger. Being ignored like this was something that had never happened before. Not to mention his own strength, just his array formation level alone was enough to make even the Universe Realm Lord treat him with respect. Take Jin Sheng for example. His strength was far above Yi Shiwen's, but he still sat on the same level as Yi Shiwen, not daring to be impudent. Chapter 2059. Longao, you're courting death. If he didn't kill Longao, he would lose all his face. Jin Sheng wanted to laugh. WN Tong didn't believe that Longao could be so arrogant. Now, he had seen it for himself. He didn't care at all. WN Tong, I heard that you're the #1 array master in the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Is that true? WN Tong's face was filled with pride. As a powerful array master in the Universal Territory, no one in the Heaven-Devouring Empire would dare to claim that they were #1. So what if it's true? WN Tong's array master had reached the peak of the Universal Territory Ancestor realm. Once he set up an array, he could even kill a Universal Territory Lord. This was the reason why WN Tong had such a high status in the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Trash. Trash. Before WN Tong could say anything, Longao said, I've set up a few arrays. Do you dare to break them? You're an array master? Not to mention WN Tong, even Jin Sheng did not seem to think that Longao was a Starry Sky array master, but so what? WN Tong laughed. Jin Sheng laughed as well. The two of them didn't put Longao in their eyes. In their eyes, Longao was just bluffing. If Longao was really that strong, he wouldn't have kept running. No problem. I also want to try and see how strong your arrays are. He didn't care. He wasn't worried. Come. Longao turned and left. As for Jin Sheng, he said worriedly, Brother WN Tong, Longao isn't simple. Let's not fall into his trap. We should be careful. Ha ha ha, Brother Jin, you're scared of Longao. WN Tong took a step forward and was already a few thousand meters away. Jin Sheng had no choice but to follow him. However, his instincts told him that things weren't that simple. Soon, the three of them arrived at their destination. Universal Territory Master Array Master. Sensing the other party's array, WN Tong laughed even harder. A Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. It turned out that Longao was just a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. WN Tong had thought that Longao was also a Starry Sky Domain Ancestor Array Master. Knowing that Longao was only a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master, Jin Sheng also breathed a sigh of relief. He knew very well what it meant to be a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. A Starry Sky Territory Master Array Master and a Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Array Master were not on the same level. Not even a fart. The two of them really couldn't figure out what gave the other party such courage. Longao, you want to use such a formation against me? No. Are you afraid? Am I scared? Hearing Longao's lies, whether it was Jin Sheng or WN Tong, both of them laughed crazily. The laughter was filled with endless contempt and mockery. Alright, Longao, I'll give you a chance. If he didn't even dare to enter such an array formation, then he could only commit suicide. As soon as he stepped in, the surrounding array formations were already activated and linked together. Brother WN Tong, how many array formations are there? Jin Sheng also followed Wn Tong into the array formation. He wasn't afraid of entering such an array formation alone, let alone following Wn Tong. Even a Starry Sky Domain Emperor could easily break an array formation set up by a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. Because of this, the two of them didn't have the slightest fear. There are probably hundreds of them. It seems like Longao didn't do anything during the past 4 months. He just hid here and set up the array formations. Strictly speaking, setting up hundreds of array formations in 4 months was 3 months. It was just that the two of them didn't know this. However, even so, Longao was already very powerful. One should know that Longao was only a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. Brother Wn Tong, how long will it take to break the array formation? Jin Sheng had no problem breaking the array formation, but it might take a little longer. However, Wn Tong was here, so Jin Sheng definitely wouldn't steal the show. Very simple. Wn Tong began to break the array formation. According to Wn Tong's estimation, it would take him less than a minute to break the array formation set up by Longao. Moreover, there were hundreds of array formations. But what was the result? 3 minutes had passed, but Wn Tong still hadn't broken the array formation. This surprised Jin Sheng a little. It seemed like Longao still had some strength. Wn Tong's expression became more and more solemn, gloomy, and ugly. He sighed deeply and said, Longao is indeed an array formation genius. If he can become my disciple, I believe that Longao will become a Starry Sky Domain Master in less than 100 years. Ah! Jin Sheng was shocked because Wn Tong rarely praised someone. How amazing was Wn Tong's talent if he could become a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master in less than 100 years. However, it was impossible. Longao had already killed the third prince. Even if Wn Tong was willing, the heaven-devouring empire wouldn't allow it. Thinking of this, Jin Sheng asked, Brother Wn Tong, what's going on? Longao has laid out more than 100 formations. If I were to take them out individually, they wouldn't have the slightest bit of power. However, they are all linked together. Moreover, they are connected using a secret technique. Even if I wanted to break them, I would need to spend about an hour. There was no need to say anything else. Just this sentence alone was enough to prove Longao's strength. He was definitely a formation genius. No wonder Wn Tong was so tempted and had such a high evaluation of Longao. It was a pity that Longao had overestimated himself and killed the third prince. Otherwise, the heaven-devouring empire would definitely give Wn Tong face just for the universe plane. This was fate. Jin Sheng didn't have a choice. An hour was fine. However, what made Jin Sheng feel helpless was that Longao would definitely escape in an hour. He couldn't figure out why Longao would do such a thing. Even if the array formation was powerful, it couldn't kill 2 people. Could it be that he had nothing better to do and wanted to provoke them? Jin Sheng's intuition told him that Longao wouldn't do such a thing. There must be something fishy going on. The more it was like this, the more cautious Jin Sheng became. However, he didn't inform Wn Tong because he knew Wn Tong's character very well. Wn Tong's expression became more and more solemn. The more he tried to break the array, the more profound it felt. Fortunately, Longao was only a Starry Sky Domain Master Array Master. If he was a Starry Sky Domain Ancestor Array Master, he would have to go through a lot of trouble to break the array. Longao was truly a formation genius. Wn Tong couldn't help but feel tempted. He even had the impulse to leave the heaven-devouring empire and accept Longao as his disciple. With such a genius disciple, he was confident that he could create an unparalleled formation expert within 100 years. However, Wn Tong didn't dare to do so. After all, the heaven-devouring empire's strength was obvious. Unless he was tired of living, he wouldn't take the initiative to provoke the empire. Outside the array, Longao felt helpless. It seemed like his array formation wasn't good enough. He couldn't make up for the difference in cultivation level. Chapter 2060. However, Longao was already satisfied with the result. Based on this experiment, Longao was confident that he could kill a Starry Sky Domain Emperor with his formation. Even killing a starry sky domain emperor wouldn't be a problem. This was already good enough. Relying on the formation, he could kill opponents 2 levels above him. Since the formation couldn't kill the 2, Longao didn't stay any longer. He turned and left. Half an hour later. By the time the 2 broke through the formation, Wn Tong was already nowhere to be seen. However, they weren't surprised at all. They had already guessed it. It would be strange if Longao stayed behind to wait for them. Even now, Wn Tong's heart couldn't calm down for a long time. Longao's talent in formations was too strong. He thought that he was strong enough, but compared to Longao, he was still lacking. It would be great if he could recruit such a talented array formation genius under his wing. Looking at Wn Tong's expression, how could Jin Sheng not know what Wn Tong was thinking? He sighed helplessly. Brother Wn Tong, we don't have to talk about our relationship. Let me give you a piece of advice. Even if you want to, you mustn't be tempted. You should know the consequences if the Empire finds out about this. How can I not know? Wn Tong also sighed deeply. It was hard to find a good master, but it was even harder to find a good disciple, especially one who was talented in formations. If he missed this opportunity, it would be impossible to find another Longao in the future. He wasn't willing. He was really unwilling. He had found such a good disciple, but he had to give it up. How could he be willing? Brother Jin, since you said so, I'll tell you the truth. Longao's talent in formations is the strongest I've seen in countless years. Within 100 years, not only can I make him a Starry Sky Domain Lord, but I can also make him a Starry Sky Array Master. At that time, no one in the Starry Sky Domain Lord will be his match. So you're saying that you want to choose Longao and give up on the heaven-devouring empire? They were shocked. Jin Sheng and Wn Tong were both from the heaven-devouring empire. They knew how powerful the heaven-devouring empire was. I don't know. I need to think about it. Right now, Wn Tong was in a dilemma. On one side, he had an extremely talented formation genius. On the other side, he had the heaven-devouring empire. He knew that if he chose the heaven-devouring empire, he would be hunted down. Even if he wasn't afraid of the Starry Sky Domain Lord. If he chose heaven-devouring empire, he would have to kill Longao. Fate made fools of people. Longao did not know about Wn Tong's dilemma at all. Longao didn't know why Wn Tong was secretly looking for him. He also didn't know how Wn Tong was able to use spiritual sense transmission. After all, Wn Tong couldn't lock his position. Longao did not have the slightest bit of fear. He returned the way he came, but it was not to the base camp. Instead, he came to the peak of a mountain. Please have a seat. Wn Tong, I want to know. Did you find my location through the formation? Ha ha ha. You're really smart. I have to admit that your talent in formations is unparalleled. Longao, let me ask you now. Are you willing to be my disciple? Ah! Hearing Wn Tong's words, Longao was completely dumbfounded. He didn't know why Wn Tong would suddenly say those words. Were they true or false? As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Wn Tong smiled and said, "There's no need to doubt it. For countless years, I believe that my talent in array formations can definitely be ranked in the top 10. Even the master array masters of the Starry Sky sector may not be able to surpass me. I also have confidence that in another 1,000 years, I can become a master array master of the Starry Sky sector. Senior, is there really a Starry Sky Domain Lord?" Realizing that Wn Tong didn't have any ill intentions towards him, Longao didn't call him by his name. Instead, he addressed him as Senior. Yes, of course. However, such a supreme existence wouldn't appear so casually. Heaven-devouring empire. Forget it, it's still too early to talk about this. Longao, the hundreds of formations that you've set up are all linked together. It took me an hour to break them all. I have to say that your talent in formations is far greater than mine. So what? Longao had never doubted his talent in arrays. If he didn't have the support of a strong talent, he wouldn't have been able to reach this step. In just a few years, he had become the main array master of the Starry Sky domain. Such a speed of improvement could only be described as terrifying. Senior, I'm curious. Even if I agree to become your disciple, how are you going to answer to the heaven-devouring empire? I killed the third prince, Shenfeng. I believe the heaven-devouring empire won't let me off. Are you going to offend the heaven-devouring empire for me? Longao didn't believe it. No one would choose to believe it. It was ridiculous. Even if WN Tong was confident, he wouldn't dare to offend the heaven-devouring empire for the sake of accepting him as his disciple. Offending the heaven-devouring empire was the same as offending the heaven-devouring empire. This is where I'm conflicted. You won't be able to understand my heart. Longao, let me ask you now. Are you willing to accept me as your master? Things had already reached this point. If Longao still didn't agree, it would be a pain in the ass. Moreover, WN Tong was indeed very powerful. He was a Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Array Master. If he could become WN Tong's disciple, he believed that it would be of great help to his array. The biggest reason was that Longao liked WN Tong. After bowing, Longao didn't say anything. He didn't know what WN Tong wanted. However, since he had already accepted WN Tong as his master, he believed that WN Tong had already made his decision. Otherwise, WN Tong wouldn't be so bored. WN Tong was pleasantly surprised. He said, Longao, I will leave the heaven-devouring empire later. If the empire dares to attack you, I will definitely help you. Longao was also a little excited. With his master's help, he didn't have to fight alone. He had to fight alone. Master, I've implicated you. Since you've accepted me as your master, we're on the same side. I don't have any relatives. From now on, you're my family. No matter who dares to attack you, they'll be attacking me. I'll kill them without mercy. WN Tong stood up and said, follow me. I'll deal with Jin Sheng first. He had to admit that WN Tong was domineering. As a Starry Sky Domain ancestor, he dared to say that he would deal with Jin Sheng. Longao smiled and followed WN Tong to the headquarters. He wondered what Jin Sheng would think if he saw this scene. Chapter 2061. Looking at Longao and WN Tong who had suddenly descended, Jin Sheng instantly understood what was going on. Brother WN Tong, are you sure? Jin Sheng was depressed. If WN Tong really accepted Longao as his disciple, would he still be able to kill Longao? Although WN Tong was just a universe territory ancestor, he was strong enough to kill Jin Sheng. If that was the case, Jin Sheng didn't dare to take the risk. Brother Jin, I hope you won't do anything to Longao in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning my back on you. You've already turned your back on me. Since you've made up your mind, I wish you good luck. Jin Sheng was sure that once the Empire knew about this, they would definitely send people to kill the two of them. At that time, no matter how strong WN Tong was, he wouldn't be able to fight against the entire heaven-devouring empire. WN Tong didn't stay any longer. Since he had chosen Longao, he would definitely become an enemy of the heaven-devouring empire. There was no point in staying any longer. Looking at the two figures disappearing into the distance, Jin Sheng's face turned cold. WN Tong, let's see how long you can be proud of yourself. Jin Sheng had always disliked WN Tong. In his opinion, if WN Tong didn't rely on his formation, how could he be on the same level as him? What a joke. After leaving the falling cloud plain, Longao asked, Master, will the heaven-devouring empire send a large number of people over? No. Why? According to Longao's guess, since WN Tong had chosen to help him, once the heaven-devouring empire found out about this, they would definitely send people over. Perhaps, it would be other Starry Sky Array Masters. However, since his master said no, he must have his reasons. Longao, I know what you're trying to say. I'm sure the heaven-devouring empire will be furious that I left the empire. However, they won't act rashly because of my formation, Longao said. I see. Longao instantly understood his master's meaning. It was simple. Although his master was only a universe territory ancestor, he was a universe territory ancestor array master. Even if he faced a universe territory lord, He could handle 10 of them at the same time. Under such circumstances, unless the heaven-devouring empire was out of their minds, they wouldn't dare to send experts over. Even a super-existence like the heaven-devouring empire couldn't afford to lose a space sector overlord. Longao, from now on, I will impart everything I know to you. You must learn well. If nothing goes wrong, you will not only be able to break through to the astral boundary lord realm, but also become an astral boundary lord array master within 100 years. I will. Longao was also very excited. Both the Space Realm Lord and the Space Realm Lord Array Master were things that Longao looked forward to. Especially the Starry Sky Sector Master Array Masters. Longao was fully confident that as long as he could become an Array Master of the Star Sky Realm, he would be invincible among those of the same level. Furthermore, he would have no problem taking on 10 opponents at once. This was the power of an Array Master. Longao, let me help you deal with Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth before we start cultivating the formation. Longao understood what his master meant. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth had always been a thorn in his heart. The Space Territory Ancestor would appear at any time. Many thanks. The news of WN Tong leaving the heaven-devouring empire and becoming Longao's master spread across the world. Everyone who heard the news was shocked. What was going on? WN Tong and Longao had completely confused everyone. After a series of events, Longao's mysteriousness grew stronger. Everyone was talking about Longao's background and how he could make WN Tong leave the heaven-devouring empire. There was no doubt about it. The heaven-devouring empire was also shocked when they heard the news. However, just as WN Tong had guessed, they wouldn't dare to send anyone without full confidence, especially the Space Realm Overlord. It was still the same sentence. WAN Tong couldn't be judged with common sense. Although he was just a Space Territory Ancestor, his true strength was above the Space Realm Overlord. Not only that, he could take on 10 opponents at once. However, Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth was nowhere to be found. Therefore, it was not an easy task to lock onto his location. Master, you have a way. Longao knew that his master wouldn't be so confident if he didn't have full confidence. Could it be that his master could locate Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth? WAN Tong nodded. WN Tong smiled and said, in order to prevent Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth from betraying us, Jin Sheng has left Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth's bloodline. As long as I set up a formation, I'll be able to locate Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Indeed, his master could use the formation to locate Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth. If he hadn't heard it from his master, Longao wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. It seemed like the Tao of formation was vast and profound. He had only touched the edge of it. WN Tong took out a small bottle and set up a strange formation. He sprinkled the bloodline into the formation and a miraculous scene appeared. I know where Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth is. Longao had seen how powerful the Starry Sky formation was. As long as the formation had the bloodline of the other party, it could locate Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth. It was incredible. Longao and WN Tong did not hesitate at all. They immediately got up and headed for the Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. It had to be said that the Ancestor of Heaven and Earth was extremely cautious. He did not enter a middle-level or high-level plane, but a low-level plane. There were countless planes. It was really troublesome to find the trace of the Ancestor of Heaven and Earth in a low-level plane. The stone bit wall was an inconspicuous low-level bit wall in the vast starry sky. It didn't even have a single starry sky cultivator. The biggest reason why it was called the stone bit wall was that the entire bit wall was filled with huge stones. At first glance, it looked like a stone town, which was very special. Longao smiled helplessly. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth really knew how to choose a place. This place was so remote and low-grade. Even the heaven-devouring empire would find Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth like looking for a needle in a haystack. Master, can you pinpoint Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth's location? No, I can only pinpoint him within 10,000 meters. However, Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth can't escape. Follow me. WAN Tong was confident. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth was no match for him. Apart from being an array master, WN Tong was also a peak Starry Sky Territory ancestor. Even if he didn't use the formation, it was still unknown whether old ancestor Heaven and Earth could defeat WN Tong. The two moved quickly. Old ancestor Heaven and Earth didn't know that he had been pinpointed. Otherwise, he would have escaped long ago. Chapter 2062. WN Tong and Longao locked onto the area within 10,000 meters. As for where ancestor Heaven and Earth was, even WN Tong couldn't locate him. However, now that things had come to this point, it was almost impossible for ancestor Heaven and Earth to escape. Longao, you have to be careful. Ancestor Heaven and Earth isn't simple. Master, you can sense it too? Longao had always felt that something was wrong with ancestor Heaven and Earth, as if there was a secret. However, he didn't know what was wrong. Yes, bloodline. Bloodline? I used Heaven and Earth's bloodline to locate him. I found that Heaven and Earth's bloodline is abnormal. However, don't kill him yet. I have to ask Heaven and Earth what's going on. WN Tong nodded in agreement. After 2 hours of searching, the two of them finally located the exact location of ancestor Heaven and Earth. Old Master Heaven and Earth, who was in the midst of cultivation, suddenly caught sight of the two descending figures. His face changed entirely. He couldn't figure out how they found him. He couldn't figure it out. Even the heaven-devouring empire couldn't find him. Was it because of WN Tong? Ancestor Heaven and Earth knew that WN Tong couldn't be judged by common sense. After all, ancestor Heaven and Earth was an array master of the Starry Sky Territory ancestor. WN Tong might be able to locate him with the help of the array. WN Tong, it's you? WN Tong shook his head. WN Tong said disdainfully, if Jin Sheng didn't leave your blood, I wouldn't have been able to locate you with the help of the array. I see. Ancestor Heaven and Earth cursed Jin Sheng in his heart. What a shameless bastard. How could he leave my blood without anyone noticing? If Longao was alone, ancestor Heaven and Earth wouldn't be afraid. However, with WN Tong here, the situation was completely different. Ancestor Heaven and Earth knew WN Tong's situation. Although WN Tong was a territory ancestor of the Starry Sky Territory and their strength was similar, WN Tong was an array master of the Starry Sky Territory ancestor. With the help of the array, ancestor Heaven and Earth was no match for WN Tong. Am I going to die here? No. Ancestor Heaven and Earth's heart was filled with unwillingness. All of this was thanks to Longao. He didn't know where this bastard came from. Longao, we have to settle the grudges between you and me today. Before the two could speak, ancestor Chen Kuan continued, WN Tong, aren't you afraid that the heaven-devouring empire will come after you if you join forces with Longao? Ancestor Chen Kuan couldn't figure it out. Just now, Longao called WN Tong Shifeng. In other words, not only were the two not hostile, but their relationship was very close. What exactly happened? How did WN Tong suddenly become Longao's master? It was a bit hard to believe. You want to know why? Seeing that ancestor Chen Kuan did not speak, WN Tong smiled and said, you don't need to know this, and I don't need your concern. Chen Kuan, let me ask you a question. What's the matter with your bloodline? After a brief shock, ancestor Heaven and Earth regained his composure. In fact, he should have guessed that since the other party had already used his blood to lock onto his position, he would definitely be able to sense that there was something unusual about his blood. Since it had already come to this point. Ancestor Chen Kuan suddenly laughed strangely and said, WN Tong, since you've already guessed it, why are you still playing dumb? Seems like I'm right. Longao was a little confused. What had his master guessed? What was the matter with ancestor Chen Kuan's bloodline? Longao was a little confused. Unusual bloodline. Seems like you've awakened your primordial spirit. Awakened primordial spirit? Ancestor Chen Kuan? Longao seemed to have guessed something. He was startled because he had never thought that ancestor Chen Kuan was the reincarnation of an expert. Ancestor Chen Kuan was the reincarnation of an expert who had successfully awakened his primordial spirit. Both Longao and WN Tong knew what it meant. That's right. My bloodline has officially awakened. Chenkuan, I really want to know who you are. In the next second, Chenkuan's aura skyrocketed from the Starry Sky Territory ancestor to the Starry Sky Sector Lord. Although his cultivation base had only increased by one realm, the difference was huge. The Starry Sky Territory ancestor and the Starry Sky Sector Lord were two different concepts. They weren't on the same level. A Starry Sky Sector Lord could create a world. Could a Starry Sky Territory ancestor do the same? Without any suspense, WN Tong's strength suddenly skyrocketed. Longao and WN Tong's face turned gloomy. The two of them had never thought that WN Tong was not only a reincarnated expert, his cultivation base had already broken through the Starry Sky Boundary Lord. Are you afraid? Do we need to be afraid? Ha ha ha, Longao, WN Tong, you guys are really unlucky. If you guys had come 3 days earlier, I would have died without a doubt. Unfortunately, 3 days ago, my cultivation base suddenly broke through to the Starry Sky Boundary Lord realm. WN Tong, I know your formation is powerful, but it won't be easy for you to kill me. A Starry Sky Boundary Master wasn't an ant, nor was it a cabbage that could be found on the street. Even WN Tong didn't have the slightest confidence before he was fully prepared. If he could continue to break through and become a Starry Sky Boundary Master, then everything would be easy. Unfortunately, WN Tong was still a Starry Sky Territory ancestor and not a Starry Sky Sector Lord. WN Tong, you should know that although I'm not as strong as you, it's impossible for you to kill us. You're right. However, don't forget that my current strength isn't the same as my real body. Wait until I break through again. Ha ha ha, not to mention you, I won't even put the entire heaven-devouring empire in my eyes. Could it be that you are? Ha ha ha, are you afraid? WN Tong's face changed when he saw that Ancestor Chenkuan didn't deny it. He couldn't be sure if Ancestor Chenkuan was telling the truth. If it was true, then they were in trouble. However, even if it was false, it would be difficult to kill Ancestor Chenkuan in this situation. Longao, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. Chenkuan, don't think that you're invincible just because you're a reincarnated expert. One day, I'll let you know the feeling of death. You, Chenkuan, you should know that if I can break through to become a universal boundary master, you won't be able to kill us even if you recover to your peak. Now, let's see if you can recover faster than me breaking through to become a universal boundary master. Alright, let's wait and see. Longao and WN Tong turned around and left. As for Ancestor Chenkuan, he didn't continue to hide. Since his identity had been exposed, he wouldn't be afraid even if Jin Sheng came. P.S. The 9th chapter was delivered yesterday. I'm not sure if you're unhappy with Little 9, but the number of votes yesterday was pitifully low. Even the recommendation votes were the same. If you're unhappy, you can leave your comments in the review and comment section. Little 9 will read them one by one. Chapter 2063. They didn't leave the stone plain. Master, I have a question for you. As if he knew what Longao wanted to ask, WN Tong's complexion was very dignified as he said, it seems that what you said is true. You have never left the plane before, so you don't even know about the legendary things. He nodded. Longao didn't talk about the Sky Marshal plane, but he told him that he came from a medium plane. Longao knew almost nothing about the vast starry sky. But Longao's intuition told him that the reincarnation of Ancestor Heaven and Earth was not simple. Wasn't the Starry Sky Sector Lord the strongest? Sure enough. Longao, I believe you have guessed that in the vast starry sky, the Starry Sky Sector Lord is just the ruler of a plane, but not the top existence. WAN Tong sighed deeply. I didn't expect that Ancestor Heaven and Earth was not only the reincarnation of an expert, but also, his master's words were very clear. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he could understand that the ancestor of heaven and earth was not the so-called reincarnation of the master of starry sky. There was no doubt that the ancestor of heaven and earth was the reincarnation of the master of starry sky. Master, what is the existence above the Starry Sky Sector Lord? Longao was very curious. Longao, the Starry Sky Sector Lord controls the plane. Above him is the so-called king, which is the so-called starry sky sector king. There are 3 kinds of starry sky sector king. The first is the entry and exit starry sky sector king. The second is the peak starry sky sector king. Starry sky sector king. Titled sector king, the symbol of invincibility. Master, what is the level of ancestor heaven and earth? According to his master, there were 3 levels of starry sky sector king. The first was the entry and exit starry sky sector king. The second was the peak starry sky sector king. As for the third, it was the titled starry sky sector king. As for the level of ancestor heaven and earth, it was unknown. His face changed again and again. WN Tong thought for a while and said helplessly, I know what you mean. Although I don't want to admit it, based on the bloodline, according to my guess, if there is no accident. He sighed deeply again. Master, could it be ancestor Qiankuan? That's right. If I'm not mistaken, ancestor heaven and earth's true body is not only a starry sky realm king, but also a titled realm king, an existence that dominates the vast universe. Titled world king? Startled, Longao couldn't react in time. Although Longao wasn't clear about the difference between a starry sky realm king and a titled starry sky realm king, he was well aware that if even his master was so serious, then ancestor heaven and earth's true body wasn't simple at all. Master, where are the 12 astral dominators? I know what you mean. Without a doubt, the 12 rulers of the starry sky were the strongest experts in the vast starry sky. But countless years ago, for some unknown reason, the 12 rulers of the starry sky suddenly went to war. In the end, all of them died. Even the 12 chaos tablets were scattered everywhere and disappeared without a trace. The death of the 12 rulers of the stars was a well-known fact in the vast universe. Longao's face was also solemn, but more than that, he felt helpless. If his master's guess was true, then things were indeed very troublesome. Even if his master could break through to become a starry sky realm master, he still wouldn't be a match for a titled world king. However, there was one point. Ancestor heaven and earth had just broken through to become a starry sky realm master. Even if he was the reincarnation of a titled world king, it wouldn't be easy for him to break through to become a starry sky realm king. The two of them had plenty of time. As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, WN Tong said helplessly, I know what you mean. But no one can predict the reincarnation of a powerhouse. When ancestor heaven and earth will break through is not something you or I can predict. It might be a day, a year, or even 10,000 years. It was a battle of luck. From now on, you have to cultivate array formations with all your strength. Although your talent is great, even if you break through to become a starry sky realm master, you still won't be a match for ancestor heaven and earth. The only way now is for you to become a starry sky realm master. Maybe then you'll have the strength to fight. Seeing his master's expression, Longao knew that a titled starry sky realm king wasn't simple. Longao continued to ask and finally found out everything about a titled starry sky realm king. When one's cultivation broke through to the starry sky realm king, especially when one reached the pinnacle, they would reach a higher level and stand at the pinnacle of the starry sky realm king. At this time, the starry sky realm king would be able to obtain a title. What title ancestor heaven and earth's true body was, he still didn't know. However, according to his master, every titled starry sky realm king was an existence whose name shook the vast starry sky. Perhaps some people didn't know about the starry sky realm master, but starry sky realm kings, especially titled starry sky realm kings, were completely different. In the following time, Longao followed WN Tong and cultivated the Tao of array formations with all his strength. If he didn't learn, he wouldn't know. The Tao of array formations was broad and profound. Longao discovered that what he had learned before was just the tip of the iceberg. As for WN Tong, he was worthy of being called a starry sky realm ancestor array master. He was known as the most powerful array master under the starry sky realm master. In just a few days, Longao had learned something he had never learned before. 3 days later, after breaking through to the starry sky realm master array formation realm, he suddenly broke through again to become a starry sky realm emperor array master. Not only Longao, but even WN Tong was dumbfounded, not knowing what was going on. According to WN Tong's calculations, if Aoa wanted to break through to become a Starry Sky Realm Emperor Array Master, he would need at least 1 to 3 years. And this was with Aoa's talent. If it were anyone else, they might not even be able to break through without 100 or 10 years. Aoa, your talent in the Tao of array formations has exceeded my knowledge. In just 3 days, you have already become a Starry Sky Realm Emperor Array Master. Given this speed, you won't even need 100 years. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. WN Tong burst out laughing maniacally. As for Longao, he was a little disappointed. He had thought that with his breakthrough in the Tao of array formations, his cultivation state would break through to the Starry Sky Realm Emperor as well. But now, it seemed like it was impossible. But thinking about it, it made sense. One should not be too greedy. Now that he had broken through to become a Starry Sky Realm Emperor Array Master, fighting against a Starry Sky Realm Emperor shouldn't be an issue. As for cultivation state, it was all due to one's body constitution. There were pros and cons. Especially after his cultivation state had broken through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord level, it seemed like the restrictions on his body constitution were getting stronger. Aoa, your cultivation speed is already very fast. Haste makes waste. Don't be hasty. With your talent and potential, breaking through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord level within 100 years shouldn't be an issue. As for becoming a Starry Sky Realm King, that will depend on your fate. Author's note, the 10th chapter has been delivered yesterday. Today, there will be 6 chapters. I was too tired yesterday, so Little 9 forgot to inform everyone. Chapter 2064. Luck. Opportunity. Hard work. None of them could be missing. Longao smiled and said, Master, I understand. Aoa, since you've already become an Imperial Array Master of the Starry Sky Domain, you should rest for a while. I've already taught you everything. You'll have to figure out the rest on your own. What belongs to others will belong to others. Of course, Longao knew what his master meant. As if he had guessed something, Longao asked, Master, you're leaving? He nodded. Aoa, although I've left the heaven-devouring empire, I'm indebted to the empire. I'm going to return to the empire to make things clear. Would he be able to come back alive? The heaven-devouring empire would be furious. If his master returned, Longao was sure that they wouldn't let him go. The heaven-devouring empire was strong. Even if his master was strong, he was only a territory ancestor. How could he fight against 10 people? Master. Aoa, you don't have to persuade me. There are some things I should do and some things I shouldn't. Since the words had already been said to this extent, Longao did not continue speaking either. After WN Tong left, Longao continued to cultivate. The breakthrough in the array formation realm made Longao even more confident. Longao was worried about WN Tong's safety. However, it was WN Tong's decision and he had no right to interfere. He admired his master for what he said was right. There were some things he had to do and some things he could give up. No matter what, his master belonged to the heaven-devouring empire. If he didn't give the heaven-devouring empire an explanation, his master would blame himself for the rest of his life. No one knew about Ancestor Heaven and Earth's secret. Longao didn't want to spread it out either. If the heaven-devouring empire knew about it, they would put in more effort to deal with Ancestor Heaven and Earth. However, no one knew what would happen in the end. Longao wanted to kill Ancestor Heaven and Earth personally. He might not be able to do it now, but it didn't mean he couldn't do it in the future. Longao had become WN Tong's disciple. Jin Sheng had already planned to make a move. No matter what, he was very afraid of WN Tong. He could even assert that as long as he made a move to deal with Longao, WN Tong would definitely deal with him. But what was the result? WN Tong went to the heaven-devouring empire and never returned. Jin Sheng was almost certain that WN Tong would definitely die when he returned to the empire this time. It was precisely because of this that he was even more confused. He clearly knew the result, yet he still insisted on doing this. A one-track mind. There was no mockery or disdain in his voice. Instead, Jin Sheng admired Wn Tong. A person like Wn Tong was worthy of respect. If it was someone else, would they dare to leave the heaven-devouring empire for a disciple they liked? After all, who would dare to offend the heaven-devouring empire with their strength? Between the heaven-devouring empire and Longao, 99% of the people would choose the heaven-devouring empire over the Longao. The heaven-devouring empire still gave the order to bring Longao to their empire no matter what. He had no other choice. Jin Sheng could only stay behind and prepare to deal with Longao. Falling Cloud Plain. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth's sudden arrival surprised Jin Sheng. He wondered if Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth was courting death by appearing here. Heaven and Earth, you really don't know what's good for you. Everyone knew that Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth had betrayed the Empire and joined forces with Longao to kill the 5 territory ancestors. If it wasn't for Longao, Jin Sheng would have taken action long ago. Sending himself to their doorstep was simply courting death. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth sneered. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth's body suddenly emitted an aura of the star boundary. Feeling this aura, Jin Sheng's face changed again. He exclaimed, "You've become a starry sky sector lord." Jin Sheng finally knew why Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth was so arrogant. He had become a starry sky sector lord. So what if he had broken through? Hurry up. Stop wasting time. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, I'm leaving. While the two of them were fighting, Longao's voice came from all directions. Both Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth and Territory Ancestor Jin Sheng were shocked to the extreme. They couldn't sense Longao's whereabouts. It seemed like he had used a spatial divine tool. It was hard to imagine how powerful Longao's spatial divine tool was. Longao, if you're still a man, come out and talk. Why do you have to hide? Your provocation won't work. Jin Sheng, we'll talk about our grudge later. I'll give you time to deal with Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth was a traitor. If he couldn't deal with him, he wouldn't be able to answer to the Empire. Heaven and Earth, since you've become a starry sky sector lord, I'll give you a chance. Join me to deal with Longao. When we return to the Empire, I believe the Empire will be lenient. What do you think? The heaven-devouring Empire could ignore a territory ancestor, but they couldn't ignore a starry sky sector lord. Jin Sheng knew that as long as Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth agreed, the heaven-devouring Empire wouldn't blame him. Instead, they would consecrate him. This was the value of a starry sky sector lord. Even the heaven-devouring Empire couldn't give him up easily. Ancestor Qian Kuan was aware of his value, which was why he dared to appear in the open. He had made up his mind to find a backer before he recovered his true body's strength. Besides, it wasn't a wise move to go against the heaven-devouring Empire. Thus, Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth decided to join the heaven-devouring Empire. As for the future, he would deal with it later. Until now, Jin Sheng still didn't know that Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth didn't break through on his own. Instead, he awakened his primordial spirit and became a starry sky sector lord. If Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth recovered his true body's strength, he would be a starry sky realm king. If Jin Sheng knew about this, who knew what he would think? A starry sky realm king, especially a titled starry sky realm king, was a supreme existence that rarely appeared in the world. Even the heaven-devouring empire had to treat them with respect. A titled starry sky realm king could destroy the heaven-devouring empire in a matter of minutes. This was the power of a starry sky realm king. No problem. However, Jin Sheng, I have a condition. If you agree to it, you and I will work together to kill Longao. If you don't agree, speak. Since things had come to this, Jin Sheng didn't want to fight Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth head-on. After all, Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth wasn't the same as before. Even if he had just become a starry sky realm lord, he wasn't an easy opponent. Moreover, there was a possibility that Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth might play some tricks. Who could he blame if he was tricked? Longao belongs to me. What do you think? Author's note: I spent over 6 hours to write one chapter. I really don't feel like writing anymore. Little 9 will take a day off to have a good rest. I'll make up for today's 5 chapters tomorrow. Everyone, please don't scold me anymore. Little 9 is not a machine. There will definitely be times when I don't feel like writing. Chapter 2065. Old Ancestor Heaven and Earth only had one goal, and that was Longao. As for Jin Sheng, how could he not know what Ancestor Heaven and Earth meant? No one cared about Longao's life or death. However, Longao's secret techniques and divine abilities, as well as his spatial artifact, were things that everyone wanted. Even the Starry Sky Sector Lord was no exception. Jin Sheng shook his head and refused. All the benefits were taken by Ancestor Heaven and Earth, while he had nothing. What a joke. Jin Sheng would rather break off his relationship with Ancestor Heaven and Earth, or even start a war, than agree to such a condition. Ancestor Heaven and Earth was not surprised. If Jin Sheng had agreed without hesitation, Ancestor Heaven and Earth would have thought that something was wrong. Ancestor Heaven and Earth smiled. Jin Sheng, how about this? When we capture Longao, we'll split the spoils and keep it a secret. What do you think? No problem. Deal. Under such circumstances, this was the only and best way. After all, with Ancestor Heaven and Earth's help, killing Longao would be more likely. Hearing the two people's cooperation, Longao was depressed to the extreme. Heaven and Earth, Jin Sheng, you two are really shameless. You want to kill me? Wait until your next life. Jin Sheng and Ancestor Heaven and Earth looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness and shock in each other's eyes. They were familiar with divine space devices, but Longao's divine space device was a bit too powerful. The two Starry Sky Sector Lords could not pinpoint the specific location of the divine space device. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. The more it was so, the more greedy they were. They could not wait to kill Longao and rob all the secret skills and divine treasures on Longao. In this way, not only could they give Longao's body to the Empire, but they could also get two benefits. It was killing two birds with one stone. Longao, you're just a coward. What right do you have to chirp here? You're right. Longao, come out if you have the ability. Let's have a fair fight. A fair fight. Hearing the shamelessness of the two people, Longao laughed. He had seen shameless and shameless people before, but he had never seen such shameless and shameless people. Before the two of them could continue speaking, a 10,000-meter-long reincarnation sword chi had already slashed out. He was startled. Because the two of them had never imagined that Longao would actually dare to take the initiative to attack at this moment. When two Starry Sky Realm Lords joined forces, even a Starry Sky Realm Lord wouldn't dare to fight them head-on, let alone a Starry Sky Domain Lord. The two of them couldn't figure out what had given Longao such courage. In the end, Longao was still not good enough. If Longao had the strength to deal with the two of them, would he still need to hide? Thinking of this, both Jin Sheng and Ancestor of Heaven and Earth laughed. Because of the absolute gap between their realms, it was almost impossible for Longao to kill them with the help of Samsara Sword Chi. Longao, you coward. Come out and fight me if you dare. Trash will always be trash. All you know is to hide. While the two of them were scolding each other, Longao had already left. He knew that with his current strength, he was no match for the two of them. Longao had never thought that Ancestor of Heaven and Earth would really make such a move. The Heaven-devouring Empire wouldn't pursue the matter of Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. With a Starry Sky Realm Lord joining them, the Heaven-devouring Empire couldn't be happier. There was no point in staying any longer. Longao was also a little depressed. Because of the absolute gap between their realms, he couldn't do anything to the two of them. Black Abyss Realm. Longao, what happened? Why did Lord Wn Tong return to the Heaven-devouring Empire? Ancestor Black Wind had also received the news. Because of this, he couldn't understand. A sheep entering the tiger's den was bound to die. As long as Wn Tong didn't return to the Heaven-devouring Empire, no matter how angry the Heaven-devouring Empire was, they couldn't do anything to him. After all, he was a powerful ancestral array master of Starry Sky Realm. Especially Wn Tong, who was known as the strongest array master under the Starry Sky Realm Lord. He could even fight against a Starry Sky Realm Lord. He couldn't figure it out. He really couldn't figure it out. Shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao said bitterly, "You should know what kind of person Master is. Some things have to be done. Master once said that he owes the heaven-devouring empire. Whether or not he takes action, he has to return and explain everything." So that was the case. He respected WN Tong because other than WN Tong, no one else would dare to do this. After all, leaving the heaven-devouring empire was a great humiliation to the empire. It seemed like he didn't want to dwell on this issue. "Black Wind, I'm here to tell you something. Don't go against Ancestor of Heaven and Earth. Understand?" "Why?" Ancestor Black Wind believed that his strength was far above that of Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Even if they were to fight, he would definitely win. He was not afraid at all. However, he knew that there was something fishy about Longao's words. From the beginning to the end, Forefather Black Wind had never thought that Forefather Heaven and Earth could break through to the Starry Sky Territory Ancestor Realm to the Starry Sky Territory Lord because it was impossible. He knew how difficult it was to break through from the Territory Ancestor Realm to the Starry Sky Territory Lord. From the Territory Ancestor Realm to the Territory Lord of Starry Sky, it wasn't something that could be achieved by cultivating hard. Black Wind, Ancestor of Heaven and Earth, has broken through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord. Ah! Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I know Ancestor of Heaven and Earth's situation the best. He wouldn't break through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord for no reason. Longao, you must be joking. Ancestor Black Wind refused to believe it. Although he knew that Longao was telling the truth, he didn't want to believe it. All this while, he had been suppressing Ancestor Chen Kuan. He had never thought that Ancestor Chen Kuan would suddenly break through to the Starry Sky Sector Lord and suppress him. Ancestor Black Wind knew what Ancestor Chen Kuan's breakthrough meant. Not to mention chasing after Ancestor Chen Kuan, it was fine as long as Ancestor Chen Kuan didn't come looking for trouble. Longao, is this true? Ancestor Black Wind sighed after calming down. Seeing Longao nod, Ancestor Black Wind was dumbfounded. He said, "It's hard to believe." Longao didn't hide much from Ancestor Black Wind. He told him about Ancestor of Heaven and Earth's secret, including the fact that he had joined hands with Jin Sheng. The more Ancestor Black Wind listened, the gloomier his face became. "If what you say is true, we'll be in big trouble. If I'm not mistaken, Patriarch Heaven and Earth will surely inform Jin Sheng about us. It won't be long before Jin Sheng and Patriarch Heaven and Earth arrive. Then, they'll destroy our Dark Abyss plane." Ancestor Black Wind knew what it meant to have two Starry Sky Realm Lords. Chapter 2066. Not to mention the two of them joining hands. Even if Ancestor Heaven and Earth came alone, the Black Abyss plane would not be able to resist him. What should he do? Longao could guess what Haifeng was thinking. "Haifeng, there's only one thing you should do now. Disperse Blackwind Ridge and leave the Black Abyss plane." Is that the only way? In fact, Haifeng knew that this was the only way to protect himself and his sect. However, he was unwilling to do so because he knew that if he did so, Blackwind Ridge would be finished. One wrong step would lead to many wrong steps. However, since things had already come to this point, Haifeng did not regret it. Seeing that Longao did not speak, Haifeng finally nodded and began to disperse Blackwind Ridge. In fact, Haifeng knew very well that as long as Blackwind Ridge was dispersed, even if the two of them came, they would not touch the Black Abyss plane. Even if they were Starry Sky Sector Lords, they could not destroy the Black Abyss plane. That was it. Haifeng and Longao did not leave the Black Abyss plane. The next day, the two Starry Sky Sector Lords arrived. "It seems that what you said is true. Blackwind Ridge no longer exists. If I'm not mistaken, Haifeng has left." In the beginning, Jin Sheng did not believe Ancestor Heaven and Earth's words. The reason was simple. Under such circumstances, Haifeng dared to join hands with Longao. It was a provocation to him and the Empire. It was simply courting death. If Haifeng was a Starry Sky Sector Lord, It would be fine. However, Haifeng was just a starry sky territory ancestor. Jin Sheng, I've told you before. You just didn't believe me. Ancestor Heaven and Earth despised him. If Jin Sheng had taken action earlier, Haifeng would not have been able to escape. The vast starry sky was boundless. As long as Haifeng deliberately hid, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find Haifeng's trace in the sea of people. If not for the fact that Haifeng had not become a starry sky sector king, Ancestor Heaven and Earth would have taken action. However, in the end, he restrained himself. He snorted heavily. Haifeng had left. Under the circumstances that he could not destroy the Black Abyss plane, there was no point in staying. Looking at the two figures gradually disappearing, Longao and Haifeng appeared. Longao, thank you. Even now, Haifeng still felt a little scared. If Longao hadn't warned him in time, he would have been killed. Whether it was Ancestor Chenkuan or Jin Sheng, they were both starry sky realm lords. Any one of them could easily kill him. I've implicated you. What are you going to do next? It was indeed a burden. However, since things had already come to this, even if Haifeng was a little unhappy, he still had to admit the truth. He sighed deeply. Longao, if you don't mind, I'll follow you in the future. Huh? A bit surprised, Longao laughed and said, Black Wind, are you a bit confused? I'm not joking. Although your current strength is not enough, I firmly believe that you will definitely become a starry sky sector lord in the future. He shrugged helplessly. If Black Wind was willing to follow him, of course, Longao was thrilled. No matter what, Black Wind was the territory ancestor of the starry sky. His competence could almost rule the entire starry sky. Let's go. With the two starry sky realm lords watching him, Black Wind knew that the Black Wind Ridge was finished. Thus, Black Wind decided to give up the Black Wind Ridge. Longao didn't go with Black Wind. He chose to part ways for the time being. Inside the Dragon Seal space. Long Fu, how long will it take to refine the two Starry Sky Corps slaves? Longao was a little worried because with his competence, even with Black Wind, they couldn't be Ancestor Chenkuan and Jin Sheng's opponents. In this case, there was only one way to deal with them. As long as the Universe Realm Lord and the world-destroying Mad Dragon could refine the Starry Sky Corps slaves, once they joined hands, they could definitely defeat all the Starry Sky Realm Lords. Long Fu, of course, knew why his master was worried. He thought for a while and then said, Master, the Dragon Seal hasn't recovered to its peak yet. Thus, it can't refine the Starry Sky Corps slaves in a short time. How long will it take? Longao knew how troublesome it was. Refining a Starry Sky Realm Lord Corps slave was different from refining other Starry Sky Corps slaves. The difficulty and time required was far greater than other Starry Sky Corps slaves. It will take about 3 to 5 years. This was Long Fu's most conservative time. Because Long Fu had been refining day and night, he didn't even dare to rest for a moment. Even so, he still needed 3 to 5 years. One had to admit that refining two Starry Sky Realm Lord Corps slaves was extremely difficult. Letting out a deep sigh, Longao couldn't do it anymore. 3 to 5 years, for a Starry Sky cultivator, was indeed nothing, because it would pass in the blink of an eye. Some Starry Sky cultivators would sometimes go into seclusion for cultivation, not to mention 3 to 5 years, even 3 to 500 years, or even 3 to 5,000 years would be a long time. Longao felt helpless. Since that was the case, he could only continue to wait. If he couldn't deal with the two of them now, he could only wait for 3 to 5 years. At that time, not to mention killing the two of them, even if he went to the heaven-devouring empire, he believed he would be able to do whatever he wanted. Suddenly, Longao thought of something and his expression changed. He had forgotten to ask his master if there was a Starry Sky Realm Lord in the heaven-devouring empire. If there was one, wouldn't he be in even more trouble? Longao knew that the heaven-devouring empire was able to dominate tens of thousands of worlds. If they relied on 100 Starry Sky Realm Lords, they wouldn't be able to dominate all the worlds. The only explanation was that there was a Starry Sky Realm Lord in the heaven-devouring empire, or even a titled World Lord. If that was the case, things would be troublesome. Helpless, Longao could only take one step at a time. First, he had to deal with ancestor Qianquan and Jin Sheng. As for the heaven-devouring empire, as long as they didn't provoke him, Longao wouldn't provoke them. However, Longao knew that the heaven-devouring empire wouldn't let him go so easily after he killed the third Prince Shenfeng. Master, your priority now is to think of a way to become a starry sky domain lord as soon as possible. Break through as soon as possible. How could he not want to break through as soon as possible? However, due to the limitations of his physique, it was much more difficult for him to break through from the starry sky domain lord to the starry sky domain lord unless he received a huge amount of energy. If he couldn't break through to the starry sky domain lord after devouring 3 starry sky domain ancestors' primordial spirits, it was hard to imagine how much energy he would need to break through to the starry sky domain lord realm. Helpless, he asked, Long Fu, what should I do? Chapter 2067. I can't think of anything for now. Even Long Fu couldn't think of a solution. Longao was speechless. Longao found a high-grade plane. Among the 3 planes in the universe, the high-grade plane had the strongest cosmic energy. He went into seclusion to cultivate. Spring passed and autumn came. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Longao's cultivation had reached the peak of the starry sky domain lord realm. He could break through at any time, but after 3 years, he still hadn't broken through. This was also the reason why Longao was depressed. As for ancestor Qianquan and Jin Sheng, they had already returned to the heaven-devouring empire. It seemed as though Longao's matter had disappeared without a trace. Master, after 3 years of refining, the 2 corpse slaves have been successfully refined. In the dragon seal space. Looking at the human and dragon in front of him, who were actually 2 corpse slaves, Longao was ecstatic. With the help of 2 corpse slaves, Longao's confidence skyrocketed. Not to mention this plane, he could even head to the heaven-devouring empire without any problems. Let's head to the heaven-devouring empire. Even though his cultivation hadn't broken through to the starry sky domain lord realm, Longao decided to head to the heaven-devouring empire without any hesitation. Without danger, how could there be opportunities? Perhaps, this trip to the heaven-devouring empire would allow him to break through his bottleneck. The plane that Longao was in was very far from the heaven-devouring empire. Even with his speed, it would take him at least a year to reach the heaven-devouring empire. Longao was curious. He didn't know how Jin Sheng and the others managed to do it. After all, Jin Sheng only needed a few days to reach the heaven-devouring empire. What was going on? Longao couldn't figure it out, but there were 2 people who knew. They were Haifeng and Zhi. After 3 years of cultivation, Zhi had refined and merged with the starry sky domain ancestor godhead. His cultivation speed was much faster than he had expected, and he had successfully become a starry sky domain ancestor. The breakthrough in his cultivation was like a rocket. Brother Long, are you really going to the heaven-devouring empire? When they heard that Longao was going to the heaven-devouring empire, both Isoli Plumblossom and Haifeng were dumbfounded. They should be thankful that the heaven-devouring empire did not come looking for trouble, but now, Longao was going to send himself to their doorstep. Did Longao not want to live anymore? The 2 of them admired Longao greatly. However, they knew that Longao would die if he went against the heaven-devouring empire. With the strength of the heaven-devouring empire, who could stand against them? I've made up my mind. He didn't want to explain anything. Emerald Plum and Black Wind didn't continue to persuade him. They knew Longao's personality. Once he decided on something, he wouldn't change his mind. We'll go with you. No. Before Longao could say anything, Spray of Plum said firmly, Brother Long, if you're my friend, then don't dawdle. Emerald Plum Blossom was very clear about his strength. If he was in other realms, as long as he didn't provoke the Star Sky Realm Lord, he could do whatever he wanted. However, if he was in the heaven-devouring empire, sorry, he was nothing. Even so, Spray of Plum Blossom still chose to follow Longao. As for Black Wind, he didn't hesitate because he was already wanted by the heaven-devouring empire. If he didn't follow Longao, he wouldn't know where to go. Moreover, Black Wind always felt that Longao wasn't ordinary. Perhaps he could become a Star Sky Realm Lord in the future if he followed Longao. Longao didn't say anything this time. He nodded and agreed. Longao had another reason for going to the Heaven-Devouring Empire. He wanted to find Bai Ling's whereabouts. If it was just a realm, how could he find her? He had to go beyond it. No matter how difficult it was, he had to do it. Spray of Plum Blossom, Black Wind, do you know what we can do to reach the Heaven-Devouring Empire as soon as possible? The two of them looked as though they had seen a ghost. They asked in unison, "You don't know?" "I don't know." Was Longao a cultivator in the universe? However, the two of them already knew that Longao came from a sealed mid-grade realm. It was normal that he didn't know about it. Brother Long, based on our speed, it would take at least a year to reach the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Even the Star Sky Realm Lord would need half a year. Not to mention the Heaven-Devouring Empire, even the Star Sky Realm Lord was very far from each other. One could imagine how boundless the universe was. That was indeed the case. Longao was curious. He didn't know how to get to the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Brother Dragon, the vast starry sky has existed for countless years. Even the ruler of the starry sky doesn't know how long it has existed. Because of this, countless predecessors have been constantly building teleportation portals. Although not every plane has a teleportation portal, each plane has hundreds of portals. Can we go to other empires directly from here? Shaking his head, Black Wind continued, "Longao, you're thinking too much. Every teleportation array can only teleport to 2 to 3 realms at most. Powerful ones can only teleport to 5 to 6 realms at most. For example, the teleportation array in the Heaven-Devouring Empire can teleport to dozens of realms. However, the teleportation array in the Heaven-Devouring Empire is guarded and ordinary people can't use it. As for the other teleportation arrays, no one cares about them. Since that's the case, let's set off immediately." Longao finally understood why Jin Sheng and the others needed a few days to reach the Heaven-Devouring Empire. It turned out that each teleportation array could only teleport to a few realms. If that was the case, it would take a few days to reach the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Longao didn't want to waste any time. He knew that he had to go to the Heaven-Devouring Empire to find Bai Ling. Of course, Black Wind and Black Plum Blossom didn't have any objections. The two of them followed Longao to the nearest realm, which was also the location of the teleportation array. Realms with teleportation arrays didn't have any clans or sects. People who wanted to use the teleportation array had to cut the queue. However, the Starry Sky Territory ancestors didn't need to do that. Both Black Wind and Black Plum Blossom were genuine Starry Sky Territory ancestors. Especially Black Wind, who was the controller of the Dark Abyss realm. Many people knew him. Isn't that the territory ancestor Black Wind? He's courting death. The Heaven-Devouring Empire is chasing after him and he still dares to come out. Powerful, powerful. So what if he's powerful? In front of the mighty Heaven-Devouring Empire, only death awaits him. Discussions could be heard all around. Before anyone could finish their words, Haifeng had already made his move. Those who had mocked him were all killed, and his speed had increased to the extreme. Seeing this situation, everyone started to move out of the way. After all, no one was a match for Haifeng. Chapter 2068. No one had expected Haifeng to attack so suddenly. There was no warning at all. Based on the previous situation, Haifeng wouldn't have done this. Since he was already being chased by the Heaven-Devouring Empire, it didn't matter if he started a massacre. The more Haifeng acted like this, the more terrified everyone became. Because no one could guarantee that Haifeng would not go crazy and suddenly attack the people around him. Haifeng was a true universe territory ancestor. Unless the universe realm lord came, no one could defeat him. Haifeng sneered coldly. Looking at the people around him, Haifeng said coldly, "Get out of my way." Everyone around had already guessed that the two people beside Haifeng should be the legendary Longao and Yiji Mai if there was no accident. No one dared to stay any longer. They turned around and left. "Longao, Let's go. Heifeng nodded. Longao didn't object to Heifeng's actions. Sometimes, one had to be firm. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Kind people were bullied. Kind horses were ridden. When the three of them arrived at the teleportation array, they were enveloped by a bright light and disappeared without a trace. The teleportation array lasted for about 10 minutes. The three of them had just been transferred from one teleportation portal dimension to another. Without any hesitation, they continued to enter the teleportation portal. After 3 days, the three of them finally arrived at the heaven-devouring empire. Peak high-class plane. In the vast universe, there were countless planes. They were divided into low-class planes, mid-class planes, and high-class planes. Above them, there was still the peak high-class plane. Because of the vastness of the universe, the planes that each empire was in were considered the peak of all planes. The three of them disguised themselves. After making sure that no one would notice them entering the heaven-devouring empire, they relaxed. There were 2 universe territory ancestors and 1 universe realm lord. Even so, the three of them knew that they were nothing in front of the powerful heaven-devouring empire. There was no need for them to clash head-on with the heaven-devouring empire. The plane that the heaven-devouring empire was in was called the heaven-devouring plane. As soon as the three of them entered, Longao was about to release his aura to cover the entire plane to see how big it was. Brother Long, don't use your aura. Longao was very clear about what Yizhimai meant. Longao nodded. In fact, even without using his primordial spirit, Longao was certain that the entire devouring skyplane was huge. At the very least, it was many times bigger than the Qian Kuan plane. Cultivating in the devouring skyplane was much faster than cultivating in the Qian Kuan plane, and it was much faster than cultivating in the Sky Marshal plane. Everyone, be careful. Yizhimai and Heifeng nodded. The three of them stepped into the devouring sky realm. There was only one superpower in the heaven-devouring realm, and that was the heaven-devouring empire. There weren't any major factions in the heaven-devouring realm, but there were plenty of small sects and clans. They were all branches of the heaven-devouring empire. With a single order, the heaven-devouring empire could mobilize all the clans and sects. The three of them found a secluded place to settle down. Even if the heaven-devouring empire was beaten to death, they would never expect that the person they were looking for was right under their noses. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. It had been 3 years. The heaven-devouring empire had been searching for Longao. No matter how big the plane was, they should have been able to find him. But in the end, Longao seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. He hadn't shown his face for 3 whole years. Longao was most worried about his master. Ever since his master went to the heaven-devouring empire 3 years ago, he hadn't returned. He didn't know if his master was still alive. Brother Long, why don't the 2 of us go out and scout the situation? Everyone knew about the grudge between Longao and the heaven-devouring empire. Even though they were in disguise, no one could guarantee that Longao was still alive. What if the heaven-devouring empire discovered him? It was hard to imagine. However, Longao shook his head and said, "You guys stay here. I'll be back soon." Yizhimai and Heifeng knew Longao's character very well. Once he decided on something, he wouldn't change his mind. Left with no choice, the 2 of them nodded in agreement. After leaving the inn, Longao was extremely careful. He knew that there were many experts in the heaven-devouring plane. If he was discovered by the heaven-devouring empire, the consequences would be dire. Even if he had the spatial teleportation and dragon seal, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to leave the heaven-devouring plane safely. Wn Tong was the Universal Territory Ancestor Array Master. Even though his cultivation was only at the Universal Territory Ancestor realm, his status wasn't any lower than the Universal Territory Lords. Wan Tong's reputation in the heaven-devouring plane was unimaginable. Longao asked carefully. After several hours of questioning, he finally had some clues. 3 years ago, Wn Tong's return to the heaven-devouring empire had infuriated the heaven-devouring empire. No one had expected Wn Tong to betray the empire and join forces with Longao. However, many people couldn't figure out why Wn Tong would suddenly return. After knowing Wn Tong's true intentions, the Heaven-Devouring Empire's emperor couldn't bear to kill Wn Tong. He only sealed Wan Tong. From the beginning to the end, Wn Tong didn't retaliate. As for where Wn Tong was sealed, this was unknown. It was also impossible to ask. However, Longao could affirm that the place where Master was sealed was definitely within the Tongtian Empire. Longao heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that something might have happened to his master. No matter what, Wn Tong had offended the Heaven-Devouring Empire because of him. Otherwise, with his master's strength and status, he would be considered a big shot in the Heaven-Devouring Empire. What should he do? Could it be that he had to wait for his cultivation to break through the Universal Territory Lords or become the Universal Territory Ancestor Array Master? If that was the case, it would be too late. Longao did not want to continue waiting, because he was not sure what was going on with his master. Just listening to the rumors from the outside world was not credible. The most important thing now was to think of all ways to determine the location of his master's seal, and then think of a way to save him. Taking the risk, he headed to the Heaven-Devouring Empire. After returning to the inn, Longao went straight to the point and explained his plan. After hearing it, the two of them were dumbfounded. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone as arrogant as Longao. The Heaven-Devouring Empire wasn't like the Qianquan sect. Brother Long, although we know that we can't stop you, we still have to say that this is too risky. To be honest, there are hundreds of Universal Territory Lords in the Heaven-Devouring Empire. There's also a Universal Territory King. If you're unlucky enough to be discovered, leaving the Heaven-Devouring Empire would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. At that time, not to mention saving Brother Wn Tong, you might not even be able to save yourself. Chapter 2069. He couldn't even protect himself. How could Longao not understand their worries? The Heaven-Devouring Empire was like a tiger's den. Once one entered, the slightest carelessness would spell doom. But in order to save his master, Longao couldn't care less. His master had sacrificed himself for him. If he couldn't even be sure of his master's life, how could he face his master? Guys, I'm sure you know what happened between me and my master. He was sealed by the Heaven-Devouring Empire because of me. I don't even know if he's dead or alive. If I don't even know if he's dead or alive, I'll blame myself for the rest of my life. I'm sure you guys won't look down on such a friend. The two of them wanted to continue persuading Longao, but upon hearing his words, they sighed deeply. Wn Tong was worthy of respect. For the sake of his beloved disciple, he was willing to leave the Heaven-Devouring Empire and choose Longao. For the sake of his own responsibility, he was willing to return to the Heaven-Devouring Empire even though he knew that he would die if he returned. What Wn Tong did wasn't something an ordinary person could do. But the two of them were still worried. Longao wasn't going to the Heaven-Devouring Empire for a vacation. He was going to rescue Wn Tong. What did that mean? The two of them were sure that once Longao found where Wn Tong was sealed, he would definitely save him. Once the Heaven-Devouring Empire was alerted, the consequences would be unimaginable. Brother Long, what are you going to do? Yi Ji my knew Longao's character well. Even though Brother Long seemed reckless, that wasn't the case. Brother Long has always been extremely calm. Otherwise, he would have died a long time ago from the Heaven and Earth sect to the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Heifeng seemed to have guessed something. I'm going to enter the Heaven-Devouring Empire as his disciple and slowly figure out where Master is sealed. Don't worry, I won't act recklessly. My life is valuable, and I won't give it to the Heaven-Devouring Empire for nothing. So that was the case. Under such circumstances, this was the best and only way. Although this method was also very dangerous, in comparison, this method was the safest. Brother Long, we'll go with you. The more the merrier. That's right. Ounce, Plum Blossom and Heifeng didn't even think about it as they prepared to follow Longao. They were both territory ancestors. Even if they were found, they could help Longao. However, Longao shook his head. You won't be able to enter the Heaven-Devouring Empire with me, he rejected without hesitation. Why is that? The two of them were a little anxious. Every time something happened, Longao would not call them. Were they still friends? Before the two of them could say anything, Longao smiled and said, "That's not what I meant. What I meant was that if the three of us entered the heaven-devouring empire, we wouldn't know what was going on outside." What did that mean? The two of them were confused by Longao's actions. Longao smiled again. "Big brother Black Wind, Zebra Plum, let's split up. Help me gather information outside. I'll be fine." It was obvious that Longao was unwilling to let them enter the heaven-devouring empire. Hence, there was no point in continuing to pester him. The two of them nodded their heads reluctantly. "Oh right, if there's a chance, I'll help you get the universal overgod Godhead." They were not surprised because they knew that even if Longao could get the universal overgod Godhead, it was at the cost of his life. Black Wind admired Longao very much. According to Zebra Plum, the reason why he could break through to the Universal Territory Ancestor realm from a Grade 9 Universal Cultivator in 3 years was because he had devoured a Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead. A Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead wasn't a cabbage that could be found on the street. Black Wind knew what a Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead meant. It was something that could only be obtained by killing a Universal Territory Ancestor realm. But in the end, Longao gave such a precious Universal Domain Ancestor Godhead to a plum blossom. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Because Hei Feng asked himself honestly, even if he was in Longao's shoes, he wouldn't be able to do it. Not to mention giving a Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead to a friend, he couldn't even give it to a family member. It also depended on whether the person was his closest kin. It was true. Black Wind admired Longao a lot. A friend like him was worth befriending. It wasn't because of the Universal Territory Ancestor realm, but because of Longao's personality and the way he treated his friends. In the beginning, although Black Wind was willing to cooperate with Longao, he didn't treat him as a true friend. But now, it was different. Black Wind treated Longao as a true friend. Regarding Black Wind's change, how could Longao not see it? Longao had always obeyed orders. If people didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. If people offended him, he would return the favor twofold. Moreover, if people treated him well, he would return the favor twofold. It was also the real reason why Longao didn't hesitate to give away the Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead. In Longao's eyes, friends were priceless. Thus, the Universal Territory Ancestor Godhead couldn't be compared to a friend. "Then, I'll go first." Looking at the disappearing figure, Black Wind asked, "What do you think? Brother Long is doing this for our own good. That's why he doesn't want us to enter the heaven-devouring empire. But the more Brother Long is like this, the more we have to go in. You and I will seal our strength and enter with disguises. I believe no one will recognize us. This was the only way, and also the best way." If it was 3 years ago, Hei Feng wouldn't have risked his life for Longao. But now, Hei Feng didn't hesitate and agreed to it. "No problem. Brother Black Wind, you and I must be careful. We mustn't let Brother Long discover us. Otherwise, with Brother Long's personality, he won't let us in." "I understand." Black Wind smiled. The two of them started to prepare. Entering the heaven-devouring empire wasn't a small matter. They had to be careful and there couldn't be any mistakes. Every month, the heaven-devouring empire would select the most outstanding disciples to enter. Those with average talent would become outer disciples, those with decent talent would become inner disciples, those with extraordinary talent would become core disciples, and those with monstrous talent would be chosen by the elders. Every month, the clans and sects in the heaven-devouring realm would do everything they could to send their outstanding disciples to the heaven-devouring realm. Even people from other realms would come to the heaven-devouring realm to try their luck. If they were lucky enough to enter the heaven-devouring realm and become a core disciple, they would be able to soar to the heavens. Chapter 2070. With Longao's strength, it was easy for him to enter the heaven-devouring empire. However, Longao forcefully sealed his own strength. This way, it would be very difficult for people to sense his true strength. Longao successfully entered the heaven-devouring empire and became an inner sect disciple. Right now, Longao was only a level 7 cultivator. That's right. A level 7 cultivator could only become an inner sect disciple. They weren't even qualified to become a core disciple. According to the requirements of the heaven-devouring empire, from grade 1 to grade 6 starry sky cultivators, one could only become an outer sect disciple. From grade 7 to grade 9 starry sky cultivators, one could become an inner sect disciple. If one could break through to the starry sky domain lord realm, one could become a core disciple. The heaven-devouring empire was indeed the strongest existence in the tens of thousands of worlds. A grade 7 starry sky cultivator was like a drop of water in the ocean in the sky-devouring empire, insignificant and not even able to cause a ripple. As soon as he stepped into the heaven-devouring empire, Longao didn't immediately start looking for his master. He had to settle down first. In the vast universe, the strong were respected. A weak cultivator would be met with tragedy no matter where he went. Longao was just an inner sect disciple who had just entered the heaven-devouring empire. It would be strange if he could settle down peacefully. Wild Lion, a level 9 cultivator, was one of the strongest inner sect disciples. Every time a disciple entered, Wild Lion would pull him in. "Who are you?" "Black Wolf." Of course, Longao wouldn't use his real name. Given the enmity between him and the heaven-devouring empire, the moment he said the name Longao, it would cause a commotion in the heaven-devouring empire. Everything else aside, the heaven-devouring empire still hadn't recovered from the shock of Longao killing the third prince. He smiled. Wild Lion pointed at himself and said, "There are a dozen small factions in the inner sect. After you join my faction, I can guarantee that no one will dare to bully you. What do I need to do?" Longao was very clear that there was no such thing as a pie falling from the sky, much less a free lunch. Wild Lion smiled and said, "It's very simple. If you want us to protect you, you can do whatever I say in the future." Wild Lion's meaning was clear. Anyone who had just stepped into the heaven-devouring empire would not dare to provoke a Wild Lion, unless they were out of their minds or didn't know what was good for them. Except for Longao. Would they care about wild lions? However, in this situation, Longao certainly didn't want to fall out with the wild lion. Killing it was a matter of minutes, and if his identity was exposed, then it would be troublesome. "Sorry, I just want to cultivate by myself. I don't want to join any forces." Reject. Wild Lion, who had been full of confidence, was stunned when he heard the other party's rejection. Everyone was completely dumbfounded. In all these years, no one had ever dared to refuse Wild Lion to his face, because refusal meant death. The heaven-devouring empire did not care about the life and death of an inner disciple. Not to mention the outer and inner sect disciples, even if it was a core disciple, as long as they were not the kind with great talent, they would not attract the attention of the empire. "Good, good, good." Wild Lion sneered and said, "Good luck in the future." Wild Lion left with his group, but he left behind 4 people. They were all grade 7 cultivators. As for what he wanted to do, it was simple. Anyone who dared to reject him would not have a good ending. 4 against 1, in everyone's opinion, Black Wolf would die without a doubt. Or maybe it was just a scare. "Get out of my way." Longao didn't want to cause trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it either. Before the 4 of them could react, Longao's figure had already disappeared without a trace. In the next second, no one knew whether the 4 of them were alive or dead. In any case, the 4 of them had already completely disappeared. In fact, Wild Lion and the others didn't leave. If Black Wolf was willing to submit, then everything would be fine. If he was unwilling and continued to refuse, then sorry, they would have to eliminate him. The law of survival in the heaven-devouring empire was even more tragic. Life was worthless here. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even a starry sky domain lord was useless. "Where are they?" Wild Lion and the others were puzzled when they saw the 4 of them and Black Wolf disappear. They didn't know why the 5 of them would suddenly disappear. Looking around, Wild Lion could not find any clues. Helpless, Wild Lion could only choose to leave the two behind and choose to leave first. 4 Grade 7 Starry Sky Cultivators, for the current Longao, was simply a joke. Without a doubt. Under such circumstances, Longao couldn't leave anyone alive. As the saying goes, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people want to offend me, I'll offend them. Longao didn't care about Wild Lion and the others, but he wouldn't make a move unless he had no other choice. Wild Lion was a grade 9 cultivator and had some fame among the inner sect disciples. If something happened to him, it would definitely attract the attention of the heaven-devouring empire. At that time, he would be in big trouble. The most important thing now was to find traces of his master. As long as he could save his master, everything would be fine. Even if he was discovered by the heaven-devouring empire, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. The base of the heaven-devouring empire was simply too big. There were mountain peaks after mountain peaks that stretched as far as the eye could see. If they could search for their master openly, it wouldn't be difficult for them to find him. However, the problem was that they didn't dare to do so openly. That would be troublesome. The more Wild Lion thought about it, the more he felt that something was amiss. After all, they had disappeared in broad daylight. Wild Lion couldn't have seen a ghost, could he? Night fell. Just as Wild Lion was about to rest, a figure flashed. Before Wild Lion could react, Longao's figure had already appeared in front of him. Wild Lion was stunned when he saw the true face of the person who came. He didn't know why Hei Lang would appear here for no reason. Didn't Hei Lang disappear? What was going on? Black Wolf, you're courting death. Is that so? Wild Lion's heart skipped a beat when he saw Black Wolf's sinister smile. He had a bad premonition. The fact that Black Wolf could appear in front of him was enough to prove that he wasn't a grade 7 cultivator. He was a Starry Sky Domain Lord, or even a Starry Sky Domain Emperor. Why would such an expert come to the heaven-devouring empire to be an inner sect disciple? Wild Lion couldn't figure out what was going on. Author's note: Little Nine doesn't want to write these few days. It's useless to force himself to death. Little Nine can only say that he needs to adjust his mentality as soon as possible. Everyone, please be considerate of Little Nine. Chapter 2071. A faint smile appeared on his face. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. Wild Lion's expression changed again and again. He had already guessed that if the other party was really the Starry Sky Domain Lord or Starry Sky Domain Emperor, his chances of escaping were close to 0. Thinking of this, Wild Lion calmed down. You're not afraid? Seeing the Wild Lion calm down in an instant, Longao was a little surprised. Black Wolf, although I don't know your purpose, I know very well that with your strength, if you want to kill me, I won't be able to resist at all. Smart. Longao had already guessed Wild Lion's thoughts. Since he could appear in front of Wild Lion without anyone noticing, there was no doubt that he could kill Wild Lion. Not wanting to dawdle, he went straight to the point. Wild Lion, have you heard of Wn Tong? Wild Lion was shocked. Nodding, Wild Lion asked, I know. Why are you asking about Lord Wn Tong? With Wn Tong's status and strength, not to mention Wild Lion, even if a random person came out, it would be impossible for them not to know. You don't need to know about this. Tell me what happened 3 years ago. Wild Lion's expression changed as if he had guessed something. He didn't say it out loud, but he had already guessed the other party's identity. Longao, the lunatic who killed the third prince, Shen Feng, and didn't put the heaven-devouring empire in his eyes. Wild Lion never imagined that the legendary Longao would suddenly appear. He finally understood why the other party was here and why he was asking about Wn Tong. However, it was almost impossible to save Lord Wn Tong. 3 years ago, Lord Wn Tong suddenly left the empire. His Majesty was furious, but due to Lord Wn Tong's strength, he chose not to act for the time being. However, not long after, Lord Wn Tong took the initiative to return, saying that he had let down His Majesty and the Empire. Hearing this, Longao sighed deeply in his heart. This was his master. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have returned. Only his master. Longao admired his master, but there were times when there was no need to do so. However, everyone had their own principles. Strictly speaking, no one was right or wrong. Continue. Wild Lion nodded and continued, the entire empire is also very shocked because no one expected that Lord Wantong would suddenly return. While blaming him, they also respect him. Longao didn't say anything. He just listened quietly. Because here was the main point. Of course, His Majesty is unwilling to kill Lord Wantong. He hopes that Lord Wantong can repent and be saved. It is strange that Lord Wantong did not fight back from the beginning to the end, allowing the Empire to deal with him. Longao had already guessed this. Since his master had chosen to return to the Empire, there was no doubt that his master was prepared to die. He had already imparted all of his knowledge on formations to him, and he felt that he had let down the Empire and that only death awaited him. Was Master's way of doing things right or wrong? Different people have different views. Some people might say that his master was a fool who was sending himself to death in vain, but some people would say that his master was noble. However, in Longao's heart, he did not agree with his master's actions. His Majesty requested Lord Wantong to repent. However, Lord Wantong said that he would never regret his choice. Thus, Lord Wantong was sealed in the Myriad Swords Valley. Valley of 10,000 Swords? It turned out that his master was sealed in the Myriad Swords Valley. Wild Lion was smart enough to know that even if he didn't say anything, the other party wouldn't let the matter rest. When the time came and he asked someone else, they would still say it. If he didn't say anything, he would die. Rather than letting others say it, he might as well say it himself. Wild Lion was very clear that the matter of Lord Wantong being sealed in the Valley of 10,000 Swords was known to all. It was not a secret at all. Because even if others knew about it, would anyone dare to move the earth above the lion's head and pull out the teeth from the tiger's mouth? No one dared. Not to mention ordinary people, even the Starry Sky Realm Lord wouldn't dare. No one was willing to offend the Empire for Wantong, not even Wantong's old friends. As for Longao, he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Based on his master's strength, it was almost impossible for the heaven-devouring Empire to seal him. It wasn't that his master was strong, but even if it was a formation, who could resist him? I have already told you everything I know. I hope Lord Wantong won't kill me. In Wild Lion's opinion, the other party only wanted to know about Wantong. As long as he told them obediently, everything would be fine. But what happened in the end? Longao would definitely not leave Wild Lion alive. The reason was very simple. He had already guessed that Wild Lion must have guessed his identity. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if Wild Lion revealed his identity? In order to be sure, Longao attacked before Wild Lion could say anything. The difference in strength between them was too great. Wild Lion couldn't resist at all. His body went limp and fell to the ground. Devouring the primordial spirit of a grade 9 Starry Sky Realm cultivator wasn't too bad. Longao could be said to have split his forces into two. One side was devouring primordial spirits, hoping to break through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord realm as soon as possible. The other side was letting Long Fu refine a corpse slave or a soul slave. This way, he wouldn't delay either of them. Longao didn't want to stay any longer. He already knew where his master was sealed. Thousand Swords Valley. As long as one was from the heaven-devouring empire, they would know of this place. This was because countless years ago, a Thousand Swords Realm Lord had cultivated here. In just a short 100 years, he had successfully broken through to the Starry Sky Realm Lord. 3 years ago, the number 1 formation master of the heaven-devouring empire, Wantong, was sealed in the Valley of 10,000 Swords. The Valley of 10,000 Swords was a forbidden ground of the heaven-devouring empire. Without the heaven-devouring emperor's orders, no one was allowed to enter. Longao captured an outer disciple and easily found out the exact location of the Valley of 10,000 Swords. There was a huge valley about 20 mountains away from the main camp of the heaven-devouring empire. Longao's expression changed the moment he arrived outside the valley. He could clearly feel the tyrannical sword chi within the valley. What a terrifying sword chi! Longao didn't enter the Valley of 10,000 Swords as soon as he arrived outside the valley. He knew nothing about the Valley of 10,000 Swords. He knew how terrifying the Valley of 10,000 Swords was. As a forbidden area, there was no one guarding it. This meant that the heaven-devouring empire was confident that no one would be able to enter. The more this was the case, the more cautious Longao became. Under such circumstances, the slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. Not to mention saving his master, he might not even be able to escape. Chapter 2072. Using his finger as a sword. Longao slashed towards the Valley of 10,000 Swords. Tens of thousands of sword chi streaked across the sky and headed towards the valley. There was no sound. There was no reaction. Longao was very confident in his reincarnation sword chi. However, when the tens of thousands of sword chi entered the Valley of 10,000 Swords, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. It seemed like the Valley of 10,000 Swords was not simple at all. There was no choice. In order to save his master, even if it was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, he had to charge in. In the end, Longao braced himself and slowly stepped into the Valley of 10,000 Swords. At a glance, the entire Valley of 10,000 Swords was filled with rocks and grass. It was a desolate place. He did not see his master at first glance. However, Longao was very clear that with how big the Valley of 10,000 Swords was, his master might be sealed somewhere. When Longao stepped into the Valley of 10,000 Swords, he did not notice anything amiss. The surroundings were calm and peaceful. The sword chi that he sensed outside could not be sensed at all here. What was going on? Longao was a little confused. Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo-hoo. At this moment, there was a strange sound coming from the sword chi. In the next second, countless sword chi appeared. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, white, gold, and other colors. The sword chi shot towards Longao's direction. Shocked, Longao was depressed. Why would sword chi appear out of nowhere? He did not dare to be careless. In this situation, any slight negligence would cause him to be dismembered by the countless sword chi. At that time, he would die without a burial ground. The sword chi surged out of his body and formed a sword chi shield. Not only that, Longao used his finger as a sword and immediately released reincarnation sword chi to block the sword chi attacks. Sword chi versus sword chi. Was the sword chi of the Valley of 10,000 Swords stronger or Longao's reincarnation sword chi? As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. The sword chi in the Valley of 10,000 Swords was like a bottomless abyss. But what about Longao? A person's physical strength was ultimately limited, and it was impossible for it to be endless. If that was the case, the battle between Longao and the Myriad Swords Valley's sword chi, it was obvious who the final winner would be. Longao was well aware of this problem, but even if he knew, what could he do? Under such circumstances, he could only resist. Sword chi crisscrossed wildly. As far as the eye could see, there was sword chi everywhere. About 10 minutes later, Longao gradually began to be unable to withstand it. He began to retreat step by step, in the direction of the valley's exit. Longao was depressed to the extreme. Under such circumstances, they could only withdraw from the Valley of 10,000 Swords. If they did not retreat, only death would await them. At that time, they would be killed by the countless sword chi. With no other choice, Longao could only choose to temporarily leave the valley. Even so, Longao still heaved a sigh of relief. What a terrifying sword chi! It was hard to imagine that the 1,000 Swords Boundary Lord who had become a Starry Sky Boundary Lord had such a powerful sword chi. After a short rest, Longao continued to step into the valley. This time, Longao was prepared to go from the left. But the result? Before Longao could even take 100 steps, the surrounding sword chi began to attack once more. Wave after wave, it was relentless. It could be said that he was extremely depressed. This time, He did not even manage to hold on for 10 minutes before he was forced back by the sword chi. If this continued, it would not work. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. No one knew if anyone would come. Longao began to panic. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, for a full 3 days and 3 nights, Longao had stepped into the Myriad Swords Valley no less than 100 times. But each time, he returned with no results. The most speechless thing was that he could not even take 100 steps. In fact, he could not even take the 101st step. If this continued, he would be in big trouble. Master, try your reincarnation heavenly eye. Reincarnation heavenly eye. Longao trusted Long Fu very much. Without any hesitation, he opened his reincarnation heavenly eye. A ray of light enveloped him, forming an invisible barrier. Then, he stepped into the Myriad Swords Valley once more. After 100 steps, the surrounding sword chi continued to attack. He thought that the reincarnation heavenly eye would be able to defend against the sword chi. But in the end, he still returned with no results. Gritting his teeth, Longao was going to give it his all. Without the slightest gap, Longao once again stepped into the Valley of 10,000 Swords. This time, when he was about 100 steps away from the Valley of 10,000 Swords, Longao did not wait for the surrounding sword chi to begin attacking him. Longao had already rapidly moved forward. Perhaps due to the restrictions of the Valley of 10,000 Swords, he was unable to use spatial teleportation. When the sword chi attack started, Longao realized a problem. The further he went into the Valley of 10,000 Swords, the stronger and more terrifying the sword chi attack became. It was not even 120 steps, but the sword chi attack was already 1% stronger than when he was 100 steps away. 1% was not to be underestimated. After all, the sword chi attacks had a very high starting point. Even with a 1% increase in power, Longao was gradually unable to defend against it. He was still using his finger as a sword. But this time, Longao did not only use the reincarnation sword chi, he even used the Shatter the Starry Sky. This time, Longao was going all out. The sword chi was as fast as lightning. Cracks began to appear in the surrounding space as it began to devour the surrounding sword chi attacks. The opportunity was here. The surrounding sword chi had already been devoured by the Shatter the Starry Sky. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Longao rushed forward as fast as he could. 150 steps, 180 steps, 190 steps, 300 steps. After a full 300 steps, Longao finally stopped. This was because the sword chi attacks around him had increased by half compared to 100 steps. What kind of concept was this? Longao did not dare to continue forward. Even if his cultivation had broken through to the Starry Sky Domain Lord Realm and could continuously use the Shatter the Starry Sky, it was impossible to use the Shatter the Starry Sky endlessly. After just 200 steps, Longao almost collapsed. He really could not continue using the Shatter the Starry Sky. Otherwise, he would have died of exhaustion before the sword chi could even kill him. The sword chi attacks around him did not stop at all. They were still madly attacking in an endless stream. Step by step, he retreated. The current Longao could be said to be in a difficult situation because he had already taken 300 steps. At this time, even if he retreated with all his might, it was still a big unknown whether he could block the sword chi attacks from all around. He could neither advance nor retreat. Unable to advance or retreat, Longao had no choice but to brace himself and continue forward, taking one step at a time. However, looking at the huge valley, he had only walked 300 steps, which was a bit of a headache. Just as Longao was gradually unable to withstand the attacks, a terrifying power suddenly poured into his body. It was the power of the dragon seal. Although Long Fu did not say much, Longao naturally knew what was going on. The power of the dragon seal had set up a chi shield around Longao, directly blocking the sword chi attacks. In this way, Longao finally had time to take a good rest. Chapter 2073. After resting for a few minutes, Longao continued forward. He knew the situation with the dragon seal. Even though the dragon seal could defend against the sword chi, it couldn't last for long. If it could last for a long time, he believed that Long Fu would have helped him from the very beginning. In the end, Long Fu wasn't confident. Thinking about it, Longao borrowed the power of the dragon seal and quickly rushed forward at the fastest speed. 500 steps. A total of 500 steps. The sword chi suddenly stopped attacking. Hey! Longao was curious. He didn't know why the sword chi suddenly stopped attacking. He looked around, wondering what was going on. Master, you must be careful. Nodding his head, Longao knew that something was amiss. He looked around cautiously. A starry sky domain lord is actually able to advance 500 steps. This is truly unbelievable. Just as he said that, a figure appeared in front of Longao. He was tall and sturdy, and his face was filled with vicissitudes. Could it be? Longao seemed to have guessed something. To be able to control the Myriad Swords Valley, the other party's identity had been revealed. He was the legendary Myriad Swords Realm Lord. Longao finally knew why the Myriad Swords Valley didn't have a guardian. With a super expert like the Myriad Swords Realm Lord overseeing it, not to mention himself, even the Starry Sky Realm Lord wouldn't be able to step into the Myriad Swords Valley. Everyone thought that the Myriad Swords Realm Lord wasn't in the Myriad Swords Valley. Senior Myriad Swords. Ha ha ha, interesting. Kid, what's your name? Longao. Longao didn't hide anything. Under such circumstances, there was no need to hide anything. You're the one who killed the third prince. He was shocked. Everyone in the Heaven-Devouring Empire knew about what happened 3 years ago. A young man who suddenly rose up not only destroyed the Heaven and Earth sect, but also continuously provoked the Heaven-Devouring Empire. 2 Universal Domain Lords and a Universal Domain Ancestor Array Master were sent out, but they still couldn't kill Longao. This was enough to prove that this person was not simple. Just as the Heaven-Devouring Empire was preparing to hunt down Longao, Longao suddenly disappeared without a trace for 3 whole years. Who would have thought that the person whom the Heaven-Devouring Empire was looking for would appear here? He smiled. Longao, you told me your identity. Aren't you afraid that I'll deal with you? Different situations call for different actions. Even if I don't do anything, do you think you'll be able to leave here alive if I inform the Empire? You won't know until you try. He was very impressed. The other party's strength was nothing in the eyes of the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord. However, this courage and confidence was something that even the Sky Realm Lord could not compare to. Longao, are you here to rescue WN Tong? That's right. Senior, please fulfill my wish. Why should I fulfill your wish? Longao didn't know that his position in the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord's heart was already very high. Even though he knew that the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord was no match for the Heaven-Devouring Empire, he still came without hesitation. This courage and friendship was enough to earn the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord's respect. A master for a day is a father for life. WN Tong is my master. Even if I die, I'll save him. It was simple, but it represented Longao's determination. It was either success or death. Since things had already reached this stage, Longao could be considered to have thrown caution to the wind. At most, he would fight the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord. No matter what happened, he would do everything he could to save his master. If the first time wasn't enough, he would do it twice. If the second time wasn't enough, he would do it 3 times. Longao wouldn't hesitate to go against the Heaven-Devouring Empire, let alone the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord. Longao, I'll give you a chance. As long as you pass the 3 tests I've set up, you can take WN Tong away. Many thanks. Without even thinking, Longao agreed. He was curious as to why the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord would help him. He knew that under normal circumstances, the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord would attack him directly given the grudge between him and the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Why would the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord create 3 tests? Although Longao didn't know the reason, he didn't think too much about it. Under such circumstances, the most important thing was to save his master. As for other things, he couldn't care less. With a burst of laughter, the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord disappeared. You've passed the first test. Now, let's begin the second test. I've passed the first test. Instantly, Longao understood what had happened. The 500 steps he had taken just now seemed to be the first test that the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord had mentioned. However, he was clear that without the help of the Dragon Seal, he wouldn't have been able to reach the 500-step mark. Even with the help of the Shattered Space, he wouldn't have been able to reach the 300-step mark. But now that he had passed the first test, it was still a good thing. As long as he could pass the next 2 tests, he would be able to take his master away. The second test had begun. Longao didn't need to guess. Whether it was the second or the third test, it would definitely be the so-called Sword Chi. There was no doubt about it. It wasn't Sword Chi, but Sword Intent. Longao instantly understood what the second stage of the Myriad Swords Realm Lord was. To a swordsman, Sword Intent was the most important existence and also the most powerful existence. There was no need to ask further. The Myriad Swords Realm Lord's Sword Intent was definitely very powerful. Because of this, Longao didn't dare to be careless. He immediately released his own Sword Intent. Although he was a martial artist, he was also a swordsman. It was just that Longao wasn't willing to use his Sword Intent under normal circumstances. His Sword Intent soared and clashed with the Sword Intent released by the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord. Under normal circumstances, Longao's Sword Intent wouldn't be a match for the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord. No matter what, he was only a Starry Sky Domain Lord while the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord was a genuine Starry Sky Domain Lord. The difference in cultivation level between the two wasn't just a little bit. However, the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord wouldn't be suppressed by his own Sword Intent. In that case, Longao would be defeated without a doubt. The 10,000 Swords Realm Lord forcefully suppressed his Sword Intent to the level of a Starry Sky Domain Lord. If it wasn't one realm higher, then Longao would be invincible among Sword Intents of the same level. Although the 10,000 Swords Realm Lord admired Longao, he couldn't go easy on him. No matter what, he was still a member of the Heaven-Devouring Empire. The terrifying Sword Intent was like a huge mountain, crazily pressing towards Longao. However, under such circumstances, Longao did not have the slightest bit of fear. He bravely moved forward. This was the Sword Intent. Once there was the slightest bit of retreat, the Sword Intent would instantly collapse. Chapter 2074. The Sword Wills clashed. It was as though the earth was shaking. This destructive force was invisible. Fortunately, this was the Valley of 10,000 Swords. If it was any other place, one could imagine the consequences. Valley of 10,000 Swords, mid-air. Looking at the sword wills released by Longao, the face of the Realm Lord of 10,000 Swords grew darker and darker. What an interesting kid. Not bad at all. Longao continued to release sword wills. Gradually, he realized that the collision of sword wills did not cause any harm to him. In fact, it even helped him. The sword wills continued to refine his body and even his sword chi. The reincarnation sword will began to suppress the opponent's sword will. Even though there was a difference of one realm, there was no fear. Boom! With a loud sound, the Realm Lord of 10,000 Swords was broken. If it was any other place, it was unknown if Longao could pass through it successfully. But now, to Longao, sword will was a huge challenge. However, the sword will that Longao possessed was simply too strong. The third stage begins now. The Realm Lord of 10,000 Swords did not hesitate. He was already going easy on Longao. If he were to release sword wills based on his strength, would Longao be able to withstand it? The first stage was sword chi. The second stage was sword will. Then, what was the third stage? In the next second, Longao already knew what the third stage was. Sword body. A huge sword appeared and slashed towards Longao. Longao was prepared to meet force with force. He started to clash with the sword body directly. If he did not fight, he would not know. Longao was clear that the sword body was the Realm Lord of 10,000 Swords. Even if the realm lord of 10,000 swords suppressed his strength, it would still be troublesome for him to meet force with force. The reincarnation sword appeared in Longao's hand. With a roar, the reincarnation sword in his hand slashed towards the huge sword. Boom! Longao's body flew out and fell to the ground. However, the sword body of the realm lord of 10,000 swords was also forced to retreat. You win. Longao wasn't injured at all. In fact, the so-called second and third stages were just too long. From start to finish, the Myriad Swords Realm Lord didn't intend to make things difficult for Longao. For a brat who dared to go against the heaven-devouring empire and come this far, it was already impressive. Thank you, Senior. Under the lead of the Myriad Swords Realm Lord, Longao quickly saw Wn Tong. He was pleasantly surprised and said, Master, let's hurry over here. Ao, you still came. He sighed deeply. Wn Tong seemed to have guessed that Longao would come. He knew his disciple's character very well. The more Longao acted like this, the more worried he was. After all, this was the headquarters of the heaven-devouring empire. Ao, you should leave by yourself. I have already taught you everything that I can. With your talent and potential, you will definitely become someone great in the future. Master refused to leave. Hearing that his master was unwilling to leave, Longao was completely dumbfounded. He had risked his life to come here, but in the end, his master didn't want to leave. What was going on? Wn Tong, why do you have to do this? Senior Myriad Swords, no matter what, His Majesty still cares about me. I have let down His Majesty and the Empire for what happened 3 years ago. I have already decided to seal myself in the Myriad Swords Valley for 10,000 years. I will not leave the valley for 10,000 years. Longao knew his master's character very well. It seemed like his master had already made up his mind. It would be difficult to make him leave. Longao, your master's talent is extraordinary. If he didn't focus on formations, I believe he would have broken through to the Universal Overlord realm long ago. Wn Tong, if you stay in the Myriad Swords Valley for 10,000 years, you might be able to break through to the Universal Overlord realm. Good thing. Bad thing? According to the Myriad Swords Realm Lord, if his master didn't leave the Myriad Swords Valley, wouldn't it be a good thing for his master? However, after thinking about it, it made sense. If his master stayed in the Myriad Swords Valley to cultivate, not only would he not be in danger, he would also receive help from the Myriad Swords Realm Lord. At that time, his master might really break through to the Universal Overlord realm. Longao knew what the Universal Territory Ancestor and Universal Overlord realm meant to his master. Once his master's cultivation base broke through to the Universal Overlord realm, there was no doubt that his master's formation skills would also break through to the Universal Overlord realm. At that time, no one in the Universal Overlord realm would be his master's match. If that was the case, it would be a good thing for his master to stay in the Myriad Swords Valley. Remember, don't be reckless. I have already repaid my debt to the Empire. Hence, I won't interfere in the grudge between you and the Empire. Longao knew his master's situation very well. On one side was his disciple, and on the other was the Empire that had helped him. It was really painful to choose. Longao, with your current strength, it's impossible for you to fight against the heaven-devouring Empire. Let's not talk about the others, just the hundreds of Universal Overlords are not something you can deal with. Longao's face was very gloomy. The Myriad Swords Realm Lord wouldn't lie to him. It seemed like there were really hundreds of Universal Overlords in the heaven-devouring Empire. Even if it was a one-on-one battle, one Universal Overlord could easily destroy him. However, would Longao be afraid? Longao smiled and said, Master, other than saving you, I'm also here to settle the score with the heaven-devouring Empire. It's either they die or I die. Wn Tong and the Myriad Swords Realm Lord were shocked. They couldn't understand why Longao was so confident when he knew that he couldn't defeat the heaven-devouring Empire. Could it be that the rumors were true? Did Longao have a powerful backer? There was no other explanation. Longao, tell me the truth. Do you have another empire behind you? The Myriad Swords Realm Lord knew what a war between two universal overlords meant. It wasn't just a matter of a few people dying. It would be a tragedy of countless people dying. At that time, rivers of blood and corpses would be a small problem. The Myriad Swords Realm Lord was afraid that Longao really came from another universal overlord and had a high status. If that was the case, things would be really troublesome. Master, Senior Myriad Swords, I've already said that I came from the previous world. However, the mid-grade world I came from was sealed by a powerful universal overlord. I left that world unintentionally. As for the Heaven-Devouring Empire, it has always been the Heaven-Devouring Empire that has been causing trouble for me. If I didn't retaliate, I would be the one dying. The death of the third prince had caused the grudge between Longao and the Heaven-Devouring Empire to be irreconcilable. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to be polite. Chapter 2075. Longao, I won't interfere in the grudge between you and the Heaven-Devouring Empire. The Myriad Swords Realm Lord had made his stance clear. Thank you. Longao was truly grateful to the Myriad Swords Realm Lord. Not to mention the strength of the other Starry Sky Realm Lords, just the Myriad Swords Realm Lord's strength was not something he could deal with. However, Longao wasn't afraid of the Myriad Swords Realm Lord. The reason was simple. He had 2 Universe Corpse slaves, and any one of them could fight against the Myriad Swords Realm Lord. If the 2 Corpse slaves worked together, killing the Myriad Swords Realm Lord would be a piece of cake. The world-destroying Berserk Dragon and the Chenkuan Realm Lord were already strong enough. If they were refined into corpse slaves, their strength would increase by 10%. What kind of concept was that? If it wasn't for the 2 corpse slaves, Longao wouldn't have dared to step into the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Aoa, you can leave now. Although he was worried about his master, Longao didn't continue to persuade him. A master for a day is a father for life. Master, take care. WN Tong sighed as he watched the departing figure. WN Tong, you're really lucky. When will you give me such a disciple? Senior Myriad Swords, I believe Longao's sword intent and talent have passed your test. Since that's the case, why don't you accept Longao as your disciple? The path of the sword is different from the path of the martial path. Forget it. The Myriad Swords Realm Lord was helpless. There were plenty of people with great talent in the sword, but almost none of them had their own sword Dao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so frustrated over the years. After leaving the Myriad Swords Valley, Longao didn't leave immediately. The collision of sword intents just now, the Battle of Sword Chi, had greatly inspired Longao. Previously, Longao had always thought that sword intent was a burden because no one would release sword intent in battle. However, Longao had completely changed his mind after the trip to the Myriad Swords Valley. Sword intent was even better than sword chi in some aspects. Longao was very confident in his reincarnation sword chi. If he could refine his sword intent, he believed that it would be of great help to him. Sword essence, sword essence, sword essence. That was it. Looking at the Valley of 10,000 Swords before him, Longao suddenly froze up, just like an old monk who had entered a meditative state. Within the 10,000 Swords Valley, the faces of the 2 people who were in the middle of talking changed, and they left together. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them were already outside the valley. Sword will suddenly rose from Longao's body. It was black and white, and it was as if 2 sword wills had come out from the left and right, directly wrapping around Longao and looking at each other. The black and white sword intents were like 2 huge dragons that began to entangle with each other. What kind of sword intent is this? WN Tong's understanding of formations was probably unparalleled, but when it came to sword intent and sword Dao, it could be said that he knew nothing at all. WN Tong didn't know, but that didn't mean WN Jian didn't know. As the ancestor of the sword Dao, Myriad Sword naturally knew what the 2 sword intents rising from Longao's body meant. Sword intent of life and death. Sword intent of life and death. Even if he knew nothing about sword Dao and sword intent, WN Tong was still very clear about what the sword intent of life and death meant. Sword intent of life and death, sword intent of life and death. Wan Tong could not believe that his disciple had actually condensed the sword intent of life and death. The sword intent of life and death of life and death of life and death. Once life and death merge, it will be the legendary reincarnation sword intent. The sword intent of life and death was the reincarnation sword intent. The path of reincarnation was also the most powerful existence in the vast starry sky. Because of this, whether it was Wan Tong or Wan Jian, the two of them could not figure out how Longao could possess the legendary reincarnation sword intent. Wan Tong was both surprised and worried. Senior Wan Jian, this matter must not be leaked out. Otherwise, Ao will be in big trouble. Wan Jian nodded. Wan Jian was very clear about Wan Tong's meaning, and said, I have already covered the surrounding space. Longao's sword intent of life and death cannot be leaked out, and no one in the Empire will know. As you said, the matter of Longao possessing the sword intent of life and death must not be leaked out. Once the sword intent of life and death was formed, it also meant that the reincarnation sword intent was formed. Wan Tong, according to my guess, in the entire vast starry sky, only that person has possessed the power of reincarnation for countless years. Even the other members of the reincarnation clan did not possess such supreme power. Senior Wan Jian, you mean that Longao is related to that person? It should be impossible. However, Longao being able to condense the reincarnation sword intent is also a kind of opportunity. It seems that this child will not be simple in the future. Longao did not hear the two's discussion at all. Currently, he was immersed in a wonderful feeling. The two forces of life and death were constantly alternating and comprehending each other. Sword intent of life and death. It seems that I am still one step away. Opening his eyes, Longao sighed deeply. He already knew what had happened to him. However, he could not truly comprehend life and death. Therefore, he could only comprehend the sword intent of life and death first. As for how to transform the sword intent of life and death into the reincarnation sword intent, hard work alone was far from enough. Longao, congratulations. Looking at the two people in front of him, Longao smiled helplessly and said, Master, Senior Wan Jian, I was lucky enough to condense the sword intent of life and death. Whether it is good or bad is still uncertain. However, there is one thing that I am sure of. The sword intent of life and death will be of great help to me. Wan Tong smiled and said, the reincarnation force that we are talking about is actually not the reincarnation force. The true reincarnation force is not that simple. You have obtained such an opportunity, so you must grasp it well. In the future, once the fusion of life and death forms the true reincarnation force, you will have a place in the vast starry sky. Truly condensing the life and death sword essence was equivalent to possessing the reincarnation sword essence. Using the reincarnation sword essence to condense the power of reincarnation, it was hard to imagine how powerful Longao would be when he truly possessed the power of reincarnation. Master, Senior, I will take my leave first. After confirming that his master would not leave, Longao did not continue to stay. He turned around and left quickly. As long as this child is not reckless, he will definitely become a ruler of the vast starry sky in the future. Unfortunately, for countless years, the Chaos Stone tablets have been scattered everywhere and disappeared. Otherwise, with Ao's talent and potential, once he obtains the Chaos Stone tablets, he may become the ruler of the starry sky. The ruler of the starry sky was a realm that every cultivator of the starry sky dreamed of reaching. Unfortunately, everyone knew that without the Chaos Stone tablets, it was impossible to become the ruler of the starry sky. Wan Tong, I want to accept Longao as my disciple now. I still need your help. Wan Tong was overjoyed. He was very clear about Wan Jian's strength. If he could accept Ao as his disciple, it would be a good thing for Ao. No problem. Chapter 2076. Almost no one in the heaven-devouring empire knew about the Valley of 10,000 Swords. Wild Lion's death didn't cause much of a stir as expected. In the eyes of the heaven-devouring empire, Wild Lion's death must have had something to do with his enemies. Wild Lion liked other inner sect disciples and had conflicts with the other factions. It wasn't surprising that he died. The heaven-devouring empire wouldn't make such a big fuss over a mere grade 9 cultivator. Longao didn't leave the heaven-devouring plane. Since he was here, he had to settle the score with the heaven-devouring empire. Other than his master, Jin Sheng and Ancestor Heaven and Earth were his top priority. Especially Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Longao knew that Ancestor Qian Kuan's original body was a titled world king. Once he regained his original body's strength, even the heaven-devouring empire wouldn't dare to offend him. This was the power of a titled world king. Longao asked around for news about Ancestor Heaven and Earth, but how could an ordinary person know the whereabouts of the Starry Sky Region Master? Did he have to infiltrate the heaven-devouring empire? It was a dangerous mission. If he let his guard down and was discovered, things would get troublesome. Longao was only an inner sect disciple of the heaven-devouring empire. He wasn't even a core disciple. It was impossible for him to infiltrate the heaven-devouring empire. What should he do? After thinking about it, Longao finally came up with a good idea. Longao's cultivation had broken through to the Starry Sky Region Master realm. He would be promoted to a core disciple. The heaven-devouring empire had a rule that anyone who could become a core disciple could enter the heaven-devouring empire. Yi, I have something to ask you. Yi, the Starry Sky Region Master, was also a new core disciple. He was the weakest among the core disciples. Yi was a good person. He was forthright and loyal. Longao and Yi became friends who talked about everything in about 3 days or so. Even though I've just become a core disciple, no one knows more about the heaven-devouring empire than me. Brother Heilang, feel free to ask me anything. Yi smiled. Heilang, you can ask me anything. Longao was very assured of Yi. Yi, how much do you know about Ancestor Heaven and Earth 3 years ago? Ancestor Heaven and Earth? Yi was surprised to hear Longao mention Ancestor Heaven and Earth. Brother Black Wolf, why are you asking about Ancestor Heaven and Earth? To be honest, I have some grudges with Ancestor Qian Kuan, so I'm looking for him. Yi. Ancestor Heaven and Starry Sky Region Master. Ancestor. Ancestor. Longao knew all this. Here was the main point. This was Longao's main concern. He didn't care about anything else. I don't know. Brother Black Wolf, if you ask anyone else, I'll know. But Ancestor Heaven and Earth is a mystery. I haven't seen him in 3 years. Yi couldn't be sure if Ancestor Heaven and Earth was in the Empire. Yi, do you know if Jin Sheng is in the Empire? Yes. Ever since Jin Sheng failed to kill Longao 3 years ago, the Empire didn't punish him. But Jin Sheng admitted that he made a mistake and chose to reflect on his mistakes. He hasn't appeared in the past 3 years. Yi didn't know that his friend was the legendary Longao, the crazy man who dared to go against the heaven-devouring empire. If Yi knew, he would be scared to death. Yezi, do you know where Jin Sheng is reflecting on his mistakes? Reflecting on one's mistakes sounded nice, but it was more like cultivating in seclusion. Longao didn't think much of it. Jin Sheng had tried to deal with him several times, and he wouldn't give up until he got his revenge. Heaven's End. Heaven's End? Longao did not know this place, but he was very clear about it and roughly explained it. Brother Heilang, you must remember that Heaven's End Cliff is an absolute forbidden area of the Empire. No one is allowed to enter without permission. Let alone ordinary people, even other Starry Sky World lords do not dare to casually enter. How could Longao not know about Yi's worries? There was no doubt that the Heaven's End Cliff was Jin Sheng's forbidden cultivation ground. No one would dare to casually step into it. No matter what, Jin Sheng's strength was undeniable. Moreover, he had the entire heaven-devouring empire behind him. But since things had come to this point, Longao wouldn't let it go. Longao didn't continue talking to Yi, and he rushed towards Heaven's End. Heaven's End was a cliff with endless cliffs on 3 sides. It was a forbidden ground in the heaven-devouring empire. No one dared to enter because it was Jin Sheng's place of seclusion. The heaven-devouring empire was simply too big. Every universal lord would have their own cultivation grounds. The Heaven's End Cliff was Jin Sheng's cultivation grounds. There was no one around because with Jin Sheng's strength, no one would dare to enter. Who dares to enter Heaven's End? Longao had just stepped into Heaven's End when Jin Sheng's voice rang out. Before Longao could react, a figure flashed in front of him. It was none other than Jin Sheng. Longao? Jin Sheng was dumbfounded when he saw the young man in front of him. He had never expected that Longao, who had disappeared for 3 years, would suddenly appear at Heaven's End. Was he seeing things? Could it be that the Longao in front of him wasn't Longao, but an illusion? It wasn't an illusion, it was really Longao. Jin Sheng, it's been 3 years since we last met. I hope you've been well. Longao smiled. With the help of 2 Universal Realm Lords, he didn't care about Jin Sheng at all. This time, he had already decided to kill Jin Sheng no matter what. As for the Heaven-Devouring Empire, because of the matter with the third prince, he and the Heaven-Devouring Empire were already at an irreconcilable point. It didn't make a difference whether he killed Jin Sheng or not. Longao, aren't you a little too arrogant? This is Heaven's End Cliff. Do you know where it is? Haha, Jin Sheng, Heaven's End Cliff might be a forbidden ground to the Heaven-Devouring Empire, but to me, Longao, it's just a place I can enter and leave as I wish. I'm here to kill you and challenge the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Kill me? Challenge the Heaven-Devouring Empire? Jin Sheng suddenly laughed when he heard Longao's words. Chapter 2077. His face was filled with mockery. Jin Sheng didn't put Longao in his eyes at all. Because Jin Sheng could clearly sense that Longao was still a Star Domain Lord and he hadn't made any breakthroughs in the past 3 years. Originally, based on Longao's talent and potential, he should have broken through to the Star Domain Lord realm in 3 years. It seemed like Longao's talent was only SOSO. Longao, you're courting death. Jin Sheng. Longao smiled. He was certain that this place was extremely secluded. Even if there was an earth-shattering battle, it wouldn't attract any enemies. In the end, Jin Sheng and the others were overconfident. Moreover, this was the headquarters of the Heaven-Devouring Empire. Other than Longao, who else would dare to come here? They were simply courting death. The power of the star boundary on Jin Sheng's body suddenly erupted, firmly suppressing Longao. Fine. Looking at the nonchalant Longao, Jin Sheng's face finally changed. He didn't know why Longao could ignore his astral power. Could it be that Longao's cultivation had broken through to the Star Domain Lord realm? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He could clearly sense that the aura released from Longao's body belonged to the Starry Sky Domain Lord. How could he become the Starry Sky Domain Lord? Moreover, Longao was still the Starry Sky Domain Lord 3 years ago. Even if he had extraordinary talent, it was impossible for him to break through from the Starry Sky Domain Lord to the Starry Sky Domain Lord in just 3 years. Longao, you don't have to bluff here. I know your situation very well. Is that so? Just as he finished speaking, a dragon roar suddenly sounded and the world-destroying Mad Dragon's huge body appeared in Heaven's End Cliff. World-destroying Mad Dragon? Jin Sheng found it hard to believe because he knew what the world-destroying Mad Dragon meant. The world-destroying Mad Dragon looked at Jin Sheng with contempt and started attacking him. 1 man and 1 beast, 2 Star Domain Lords clashed fiercely. The World Annihilation Mad Dragon's main body was stronger than Jin Sheng. Now that it had been refined into a Starry Sky Corp slave, its strength was still far above Jin Sheng's. If this situation continued, Jin Sheng would undoubtedly die. Jin Sheng was forced to retreat. Longao, it's me. He could not be bothered with Jin Sheng. This time, after entering Heaven's End Cliff, Longao had already made up his mind to kill Jin Sheng. If you don't remove the roots when you cut the weeds, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Especially under such circumstances, there would be 1 less person to kill. No matter what. Longao was very clear in his heart that according to the grievances between him and the Empire, it had already reached the point where it was either you die or I die. As the battle continued to escalate, Jin Sheng found it harder and harder to resist. Crack. The sound of ribs breaking could be heard. The world-destroying mad dragon did not have the slightest bit of emotion as it charged towards Jin Sheng. Jin Sheng was in complete despair. He had never imagined that he would die here. This was the headquarters of the heaven-devouring empire. Where did Longao find this world-destroying mad dragon? He could not figure it out. He really could not figure it out. However, there was no time for Jin Sheng to think. The world-destroying mad dragon's attacks were too crazy. Wave after wave, it was like a landslide. Longao, there is no grudge between us. Why do you have to do this? In the end, Jin Sheng decided to compromise. In his opinion, as long as he could leave Heaven's End Cliff, it would not be a problem for the heaven-devouring empire to kill Longao. After all, the world-destroying mad dragon was nothing to the heaven-devouring empire. Not only did the heaven-devouring empire have hundreds of star domain lords, but there was also a star domain king. No matter how strong the world-destroying mad dragon was, it could not be stronger than a star domain king. However, Jin Sheng still underestimated the world-destroying mad dragon. It didn't have the slightest consciousness. Its only consciousness was to accept orders. Now that Longao's order was to kill Jin Sheng, how could the world-destroying mad dragon relax its attack? What should I do? What should I do? Am I really going to die in Heaven's End Cliff? What a tragedy, what a joke. Jin Sheng was in an extremely tragic situation. However, there was also a trace of despair in his heart. Although he could still defend against the world-destroying mad dragon's attacks, he would definitely die if the situation continued. The world-destroying mad dragon was too strong. Even if there was another Jin Sheng, they might not be a match for the world-destroying mad dragon. Not only that, Jin Sheng started to feel that something was wrong. He could clearly sense that the world-destroying mad dragon did not seem to have any consciousness. Even if he attacked it, it would not hurt or itch. When did the world-destroying mad dragon's physical defense become so strong? At this moment, Jin Sheng finally understood why Longao dared to come to the heaven-devouring empire alone and enter Heaven's End Cliff. It turned out that he had something to rely on. With the help of a super expert like the world-destroying mad dragon, even the heaven-devouring empire would not dare to make an enemy out of Longao. However, for the sake of the empire's reputation and the third prince, there was no way the empire would let Longao go. He had become a sacrificial lamb. He had provoked Longao for no reason. Now, he was in his own territory. If he was killed by Longao, he would become a laughingstock if news of this were to spread. A dignified Starry Sky Realm Lord was killed by Longao in the heaven-devouring empire's End Cliff. What kind of situation was this? I can't die, I definitely can't die. As long as I leave Heaven's End Cliff, I won't die. Thinking of this, Jin Sheng started to attack the world-destroying mad dragon madly. The world-destroying mad dragon did not know pain, but Jin Sheng could not do the same. As the battle escalated, he could not figure out how the other party was doing it. Could it be that his attacks weren't strong enough? Jin Sheng was clear about the strength of his attacks. No matter who it was, no one would dare to take it head-on. If that was the case, not only was the world-destroying mad dragon strong, even its physical defense was way beyond Jin Sheng's knowledge. A world-destroying mad dragon as such was an invincible existence amongst the Starry Sky Realm Lords. It was hard to imagine that other than the Starry Sky Realm King, who else could be a match for the world-destroying mad dragon? Since his attacks were useless, Jin Sheng was getting beaten up everywhere. As time passed, Jin Sheng started to weaken. Crack. Crack. Being attacked continuously, Jin Sheng's body was sent flying. Would the world-destroying mad dragon let Jin Sheng off? Without a doubt, the world-destroying mad dragon was now a corpse slave of the Starry Sky. It would only listen to the orders of Longao alone. Once again, it lunged towards Jin Sheng, who was powerless to resist. This time around, Jin Sheng was dead for sure. Just as Longao was filled with joy and Jin Sheng was waiting for death in despair, the situation changed. A horrifying realm power descended. It was the astral realm, a power that belonged to the Starry Sky Realm Lord. Chapter 2078. Your Majesty, save me. Your Majesty? Could it be the Emperor of the Heaven-Devouring Empire? Longao could sense that this powerful astral domain was released by a starry sky realm king. The world annihilation mad dragon was frozen in place, motionless in mid-air. In the next second, 3 figures appeared. Seeing the 3 of them, Jin Sheng was pleasantly surprised. He hurried to the back of the 3 and said, "Your Majesty, this is Longao, the one who killed the 3rd prince." The 3 of them were none other than the 3 titled world kings of the Heaven-Devouring Empire. The Emperor of the Heaven-Devouring Empire, Shen Teng, and the 2 Grand Elders were Shen He and Shen Zhuo. Without a doubt, the 3 of them were powerful titled world kings. "You are Longao?" "Yes." Longao was afraid and didn't dare to move. Even if he entered the dragon seal space, he couldn't move casually. This was because he didn't know how powerful a titled world king was. He only had one chance. If he missed it, the consequences would be unimaginable. "You're not bad." Instead of getting angry, Shen Teng smiled. He looked at the 2 people beside him and said, "What can you see? This child isn't a reincarnation. This child's talent isn't as simple as we thought." What did that mean? Jin Sheng was a little confused. According to his calculations, the Emperor would definitely attack Longao as soon as he saw him. After all, the Emperor's son, the 3rd prince, had died in Longao's hands 3 years ago. The grudge of his son's death was irreconcilable. "Longao, if you're willing to join my heaven-devouring empire, we'll write off all our grudges. How about it?" "Ah!" Hearing Shen Teng's words, Jin Sheng was dumbfounded. He didn't know what the Emperor meant. However, under such circumstances, Jin Sheng didn't dare to say anything. Longao was also a little surprised. The grudge of his son's death was irreconcilable. Since that was the case, what did the Emperor mean? "Longao, His Majesty is asking if you're willing to join the Empire." The 2 Grand Elders on the left and right were clearly not as easy to talk to as Shen Teng. Their faces were filled with indifference and disdain. However, it wasn't a big deal. After all, both of them were titled world kings. Let alone a starry sky domain master, even a starry sky domain master was nothing in their eyes. "Do you think I'll agree?" Regardless of whether the other party was sincere in inviting him to join, Longao would not agree. "I gave you face, but you didn't want it," Shen Zhuo said coldly. In the next second, a terrifying astral domain instantly suppressed Longao. Longao was directly suppressed to the point where he knelt on one knee, but he still managed to withstand it. Hey! The 3 of them were a little surprised. Because they'd never imagined that a tiny region lord would actually be able to resist the suppression of an astral domain. "Ha ha ha, Longao, you really surprised me." Shen Teng suddenly laughed. "I really admire you. You have 2 choices. Either you submit or you die. You're a smart person. I believe you'll make the right choice." For some reason, Longao had a feeling that the Heaven-Devouring Empire's Emperor was sincerely inviting him to join the Empire. One had to know that he had killed the 3rd prince, Shen Feng. Shen Teng and Shen Ting were in a situation where one of them had to die. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful Shen Teng was. In order to recruit talents, he was even willing to put down his son's hatred. Longao admired Shen Teng, but after thinking about it, he understood. If it wasn't for Shen Teng's talent, he wouldn't have been able to lead such a huge empire. It was easy to imagine how powerful the ruler of tens of thousands of realms was. Longao didn't say anything. Shen Teng didn't say anything. The other 3 didn't say anything either. Jin Sheng's expression changed again and again. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. Everything was fine, but His Majesty actually wanted to recruit Longao. Right now, Jin Sheng was terrified to the extreme. With Longao's current strength, he naturally wasn't afraid. The only thing he was afraid of was the world annihilation berserk dragon. With such a dangerous existence, who knew when Longao would make his move? As for Shen Teng, the reason he wanted to recruit Longao wasn't because of Longao's strength or talent. No matter what, there were monstrous geniuses everywhere in the universe. With the strength of the heaven-devouring empire, even if he didn't say anything, there would be many people coming over. The biggest reason was Longao's secret technique to refine his Yuan spirit. Putting aside the third prince, how could the world annihilation berserk dragon hide from the three of them? The three of them could tell that the world annihilation berserk dragon didn't have any consciousness. Its Yuan spirit had been refined and it was forcefully moving its body. Such a secret technique was heaven-defying. If the Empire could obtain such a secret technique, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. However, Shunting knew that it was impossible to obtain the secret technique. Rather than destroying Longao, it was better to recruit Longao. This way, they could obtain the secret technique, which would be beneficial to the Empire. Shunting was an ambitious and ruthless character. If it was someone else, how could they possibly recruit the murderer of their son in front of them? The three of them were waiting for Longao's choice. Shunting was already prepared. If Longao chose to join the Empire, then the grudge between them would be written off. He wouldn't obstruct the Empire's development over the death of a son. If Longao chose to refuse to join the Empire, then they absolutely couldn't let him live. Even if they couldn't obtain the secret technique to refine his Yuan spirit, they absolutely couldn't let him live. They had to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. In fact, Longao's secret technique to refine Yuan spirit was also present in the vast starry sky. However, it wasn't as powerful and abnormal as Longao's. It was completely imaginable that even Shunting was tempted. This was enough to show how abnormal the secret technique to refine Yuan spirit was. They didn't know that this secret technique didn't belong to Longao, but to Longfu and Longao. This was Longao's biggest secret. Except for a few people, it was impossible for others to know about it. Longao definitely wouldn't agree. Thus, if he refused, then Shunting and the others wouldn't let him off. The reason why Longao chose to remain silent was because he wanted to think of a way to escape unscathed. As for Longying, Longao didn't dare to casually enter. This was because he wasn't sure if Shunting and the others could lock onto Longying's position. If he stepped into Longying's space and the three of them locked onto him, then he would be in big trouble. Longao didn't even dare to communicate with Longfu. After all, he still didn't know how strong a titled world king was. Before he had absolute confidence, he wasn't willing to take the risk. Shunting and the others didn't rush him. Instead, they calmly waited. Jin Sheng, are you all right? Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. I'm fine. In front of three powerful titled world kings, even Jin Sheng had to be respectful and respectful. P.S. I've rested for a few days. Thank you for your understanding and support. Tomorrow, I'll explode with 10 chapters. Chapter 2079. He only smiled. Chen Ting was very polite to the Starry Sky World Lord because he knew that the Starry Sky World Lord was the greatest asset of the heaven-devouring empire. My apologies. 4 simple words were enough to express Longao's intention. Chen Ting didn't show any anger as he seemed to have guessed the other party's intention. Kill. Just now, Chen Ting had made it very clear that there were only 2 choices. Either they chose to submit or they chose to die. In the next second, Longao prepared to enter the Dragon Seal space. After thinking about it, entering the Dragon Seal space was the safest option. As long as he could enter, he would be completely safe. But the result? 3 terrifying astral domains instantly enveloped Longao. Before he could enter the Dragon Seal space, he was forcefully separated by the astral domains. As expected, Longao had already guessed that he couldn't enter the Dragon Seal space. After all, a titled world king was too strong. Spatial divine item. Chen Ting sneered. Just as the 3 of them were about to attack, Longao took a step forward and arrived in front of the cliff. Longao, I want to remind you. No matter who it is, as long as you jump down from the cliff, you will definitely die. Chen Ting and the other 2 laughed. They knew very well what a 10,000-foot tall cliff meant. Even they did not dare to casually step into the bottom of the cliff. In the past, There was a titled World King Senior in the heaven-devouring empire who jumped down out of curiosity. No one knew if he was alive or dead. Even now, no one knew if he was dead or alive. It was because of this that the cliff became a forbidden area in the heaven-devouring empire. No one was allowed to step into the cliff. Heaven's End Cliff wasn't just a place where Jin Sheng cultivated, it was also a place he guarded. A starry sky world lord guarding this place was enough to prove how important it was to the heaven-devouring empire. Without a second word, Longao turned around and jumped down the cliff, disappearing without a trace. Your Majesty, what should we do now? Jin Sheng, guard this place. If Longao comes out alive, inform us immediately. Yes. Shen Teng was actually very clear in his heart. Longao jumping into the bottomless abyss, the chances of survival were virtually zero. Heaven's End Cliff. A bottomless abyss. Longao fell unconscious before he even landed on the ground. It turned out that the cold current in the bottomless abyss was simply too terrifying. Even if his cultivation base had broken through to the cosmic domain Lord Realm, he still wouldn't be able to endure it. Time trickled by. As he slowly woke up, Longao felt a splitting headache, as if his head was about to explode. Where was this? Longao was more or less relieved in his heart. No matter what, having intuition meant that he had not fallen yet. He endured the bursts of pain coming from his body, slowly stood up, and began to look at the surrounding environment. This was a dark space. The surroundings were grey and misty, and one couldn't see the end of it. Therefore, one couldn't tell how big this dark space was. There were corpses everywhere, piled up like mountains and scattered everywhere. A strange and terrifying aura enveloped the entire area. Perhaps it was because of the extreme pain, Longao staggered and almost fell. However, he still sat down limply, feeling weak all over. It was as if someone had sucked him dry. What is this smell? All of a sudden, Longao smelled a very pungent smell. Looking over, in the dim and gloomy space, there was a huge blood pool not far away. Inside, there was blood bubbling non-stop. What was this? Longao stood up and slowly approached the blood pool. If it was under normal circumstances, with Longao's speed, he would only need a single step to reach it. However, after being seriously injured, it took him tens of minutes to walk a single step. One could imagine how serious Longao's injuries were. The blood pool was hundreds of square meters in size, and there were blood-red bubbles everywhere. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Huge blood bubbles intertwined with each other and constantly collided with each other, producing extremely ear-piercing sounds. Staring at the blood pool in front of him, the ear-piercing sounds came one after another. Strange, the blood pool was very strange. Longao did not dare to get close to the blood pool. He could clearly sense the danger from it. Sitting on the ground, he began to recuperate. Although the injury was serious, Longao had full confidence that at most 3 days' time, his injury could be more or less recovered. As for whether or not there was any danger here, he did not know. Crack, crack, crack. Just as Longao was fully focused on his cultivation, corpses and skeletons appeared from the blood pool one after another. Before long, countless corpses and skeletons appeared and rushed towards Longao crazily. Suddenly opening his eyes, Longao's complexion also changed. Because the blood-colored skeletons constantly appeared around him. They were like killing tools. At the same time, they crazily rushed towards him. At the same time, their bodies also released a terrifying bloody aura. Not to mention the strength of the corpses and skeletons, just the blood aura alone was enough to make Longao unable to withstand it. He hurriedly left. But before he could even get up, he was already trapped by the aura of the blood pool and was rooted to the ground. Was he really going to die here? Of course not. But Longao suddenly recalled Shen Teng's words back at Heaven's End Cliff. No matter who it was, as long as they stepped into the cliff, they would definitely die. Seemed like this space he was in wasn't that simple after all. The reincarnation sword appeared in his right hand as he slashed out at the corpses around him. Sword chi followed by sword chi was relentless. It was none other than the reincarnation lightning strike. The blood mist around him might have been fatal to others. But to Longao, it did not have much of an effect. The reincarnation sword chi directly broke through the blood-colored shroud. Longao quickly flew towards the distance. However, there were blood-colored skeletons everywhere. In the blink of an eye, they had already surrounded Longao. It was either you die or I die. As Longao dodged continuously, the reincarnation sword in his hand slashed out reincarnation sword chi continuously. The defense of the corpses was extremely weak, and could not withstand the killing power of the reincarnation sword chi. A single sword could kill dozens of corpses instantly. But even so, what could he do? The endless blood-colored skeletons were like locusts that filled the sky. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Longao knew that it was impossible to destroy all the blood-colored skeletons by relying on his own strength. If this continued, he would only have a dead end. The eruption point was still the blood pool. Longao once again used the reincarnation lightning strike. Sword chi followed by sword chi rapidly slashed towards the blood pool. However, because of the countless corpses emerging from the blood pool, the sword chi could only destroy the corpses at most. It could not get close to the blood pool. So, how could he destroy the blood pool? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.